devices are set to silent mode to maintain the conducive of our gathering. Distinguished guests, dear ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to deliver a warm welcome to our honorable keynote speaker of today's conference, Bapak Fathul Wahid, the professor in the field of information systems, rector of Universitas Islam Indonesia. Honorable, the Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, SH, M.Hum. Honorable, the Vice Dean for Resource Management, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Sri Hastuti Puspitasari, SH, M.H. Honorable, the Vice Dean for Religious, Student, and Alumni Affairs, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Agus Triyanta, MA, MH, PhD. Honorable, the Head of Department, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Mahrus Ali, SH, MH. Honorable, the Head of Doctoral Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Profesor Dr. M. Syamsuddin, SH, MH. Honorable, the Head of Master Study Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Sefriani, SH, M.Hum. Honorable, the Head of Master Study Program in Notarial Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Nurjihat, SH, MH. Honorable, the Head of Undergraduate Study Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dodik Setiawan Nur Herianto, SH, MH, LLM, PhD. Honorable, Foreign Lecturers of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Francis and Mary Duffy, LLM, Grad Dip at BA-CEL. Honorable Ahmad Saad Ahmad Al-Dafrawi, PhD, MD, BSc. The Honorable Christopher Kason, BA, GD. Honorable, our glorious moderator, Nur Gemilang Mahardhika, SH, LLM, which currently serves as the lecturer at Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Honorable, all fellow speakers of today's international conference, Professor Tim Lindsey, Professor in Law from Melbourne University, Australia. Dr. Nurhafilah Musa, Lecturer and Deputy Dean Academic Affairs from Fakulti Undang-Undang Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Dr. Farhat Ullah, Lecturer at the Department of Sociology from University of Warwick, Coventry, United Kingdom. And Dr. Agus Triyanta, MA, MH, PhD, Lecturer from Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. All committees, lecturers, facilitators, invited guests, journalists, press, reviewers, presenters, and participants who dedicated their time to come to this spectacular agenda coming from universities all over the world. A quick pantun before I start the agenda. Please say "cakep" loudly, or it means cool in English, okay? Okay, are you ready? Yeah. In Yogyakarta, we eat nasi. Okay, I think everybody haven't eaten nasi for breakfast today. Okay, I will repeat it one more. Okay, please say loudly, cakep. In Yogyakarta, we eat nasi. After that, mendaki sampai Mount Merapi. Many prestasi, many kolaborasi. Faculty of Law UII always di hati. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning from Indonesia. May peace be upon you all. In this delightful moment, let us convey our greatest gratitude and praise only for God, the creator of the universe, the Almighty, most gracious, most merciful, only because of His blessings and mercies, enable us to gather here in good health and great condition. May peace and salutation be upon the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Peace be upon him, the role model of mankind, who complete teaching and the chain of unity with Islamic values until today. Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology, and Society 2024. Today, 21st of September 2024, located at Auditorium Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Please give round of applause. On behalf of the organizing committee, deeply appreciate your attendance to this very spectacular event. A special warm welcoming going to the experts from all around the world who will gather and discussing issues related to law, technology, society, and its advancement through offline and online today. Ladies and gentlemen, this international conference in law, technology, and society is mutually joint agenda between Master Study Program in Law, Doctor Study Program in Law, and Master Program in Notarial Law, or the Postgraduate Programs in Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, which emphasizing the sharing of best practice for maintaining the rule of law toward technology and society in address issues concerning laws and society in the era of digital transformation. And selected papers will be recommended for a fast review and publication, and also there's a session to present your paper. Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, to set a reflective tone for today's discussions, we will begin with a beautiful recitation of the Holy Quran. Please welcome Brother Zaki Taqiyuddin, student from Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم صدق الله الجبار العظيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the singing the national anthem Indonesia Raya, followed by the hymn of Universitas Islam Indonesia. We respectfully invited all the audiences to rise and stand up.
Syariat Islam amalan kita.
Thank you. Please be seated. Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite Dean of Faculty of Law to deliver the welcoming remarks, and at the end of the speech, we request the Dean to officially open the first Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology and Society 2024. Without further ado, please welcome Professor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, SH Hum. The stage is yours. Please give round of applause.
The Honorable Professor Fathul Wahid, STMT PhD, Rector of Universitas Islam Indonesia, and he will become keynote speaker in this conference. The Honorable, my colleagues, Dr. Sri Hastuti Puspitasari, SHMH, Vice Dean for Resource Management, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, and Dr. Agus Triyanta, MH, MA, PhD, Vice Dean for Religion, Student and Alumni Affairs, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, and also all of leader in Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. The Honorable Speaker and Moderator, namely Professor Tim Lindsey from Melbourne University, Australia, and Dr. Nurhafilah Musa from Universiti Kebangsaan, Malaysia, and then Dr. Farhat Ullah from Warwick University, Coventry, UK, and then Gemilang Mahardhika, SH LLM, from Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. My respected all of participants in here and link Zoom. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank for attendance and participation in the first Postgraduate International Conference on Law and Technology and Society. Today, our international conference is the first conference organized by Postgraduate Program Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, and support by several universities in the country and abroad, such as Digital University from Turkey, and then Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia from Malaysia, and also Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah. This program is presented to build conducive academic atmosphere in campus environment, as well as the improvement of higher quality academic activities. In this conference, there were some experts and speakers who are competent in their field to discuss in-depth law, technology, and society. In addition, there were conference participants from different universities, domestically and abroad. Therefore, we would like to thank everyone who has supported to run well and smoothly. Thank you very much and enjoy with international conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for the Dean for the encouraging words to set the stage for today's enriching discussions. Dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers, fasten your seatbelt. Now we will depart to the sky of knowledge. Coming up next is the keynote speech entitled, What Will Lead Us? Technology and its Advancement Toward Society, which will be delivered by keynote speaker. We are especially honored to have Rector of Universitas Islam Indonesia. Please welcome Bapak Fathul Wahid. The stage is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all of us, respected invited speakers, the Dean, the Vice Dean, the Chairman of Study Program, and representative from partners universities, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, Universiti from Turkey, and State Islamic University, Syariah Jakarta, and all the participants that attend this conference physically and through the online channel. So I was being asked by the organizing committee to share with you some perspectives. And I put this title on my short talk, Data, Power and Ethics, Impacts of Technology on Human Sovereignty or Human Liberty. Okay, I have to get attention from the operator. Okay, this is my short talks. It's possible for me to not to be standing here. I think that's better. Okay, this is the short talk. So why I chose this topic is because we need to balance or to complement the pervasive discussion about the advancement of technology in various forms. AI, Internet of Things, biotechnology, and so on and so forth. So because of the limited time I have, so I would like to focus on one certain aspect, which is the impact of technology on human agency and specifically on democracy. So this is also an invitation to us to reflect in depth what we are discussing in class and on what we have done in our practice. And ultimately, I would like that all of us will recalibrate our ethical compass to sharpen our sensitivity when we being exposed to various practice about the use of technology in our daily life. So this is the storyline. The first one is about the perspective, and the second one, I will invite you to see some examples you can see from various contexts, not only in Indonesia, but also abroad. And the third one, I would like to offer a standpoint that we can choose to cope with the recent development in this context. So this is the perspective. So this is opening vignette. So, a couple of months ago, my former student visited me in my office. She told me that she would like to resign from her former position in one national startup company as data analyst. Why she chose that option? Because she witnessed that the company paid a lot of attention using the data to capitalize, to use it for improving company's profit only. So the perspective the companies choose is merely on financial aspect, organizational growth, without a certain space left to think about the humanity. So that's why she chose to resign. But the question is that it was only her feeling and had nothing to do with her moral standard or ethical consideration, that's the first option. Or her ethical compass worked properly and it told her to make an ethical decision. We keep this question and answer it later. It's not very clear which situation she faced in the company. So, then I remember this fragment in the Spider-Man movie, when Uncle Ben told Peter Parker, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. And data collected by the use of technology is a source of power. So this data and power. So we witness that the world is more data-driven. You can call it data-driven, or you can also call it data-inspired. In this case, understanding, protecting, and managing data will become more central to maintain and balancing power. So many consider that data is the new oil, the new source of power. In variety of form. We can say, for example, economic power. The company that rule data, you can mention it. Google, Meta, Facebook, and friend. They collect a lot of data from our online behavior. They process it, capitalize it for many different purposes. We can discuss it later. It's economic power. The data can also be source of inspiration, insight for innovation. But at the same time, in different contexts, data can also provide political power, surveillance. We will discuss it later in the next slide. Election targeting, micro-targeting. I will show you the example later. And policy making, of course. Social power, influence opinion manipulation is part of the use of data as a source of power in various forms. And also in an international context, data is also the source of geopolitical power. So without doubt, data is very powerful today. But then, we need to understand the concept of power, briefly at least. So power is a relational concept. When we say that someone has power, she or he have to be another partner with him or her. Relational concept. Power over something, power over someone is rational concept. But the power can manifest in different forms. Soft power, for example, by persuading others, mobilizing resources without any rejection, for example, this is soft power. But also we can see power using nakedly, hard power, using coercive power, by a lot of means like regulation, military forces, and so on and so forth. But also we have like a combination between hard hard and soft power. We can call it smart power. Just like in the Kung Fu, martial art. So they use like smart power. In one occasion, they use very soft movement, but suddenly they can use the hard power to defeat the opponent. There's a short conception about power, and we will come to this kind of power in later discussion when we relate it with the acquisition of data. But then I would like also to invite you to pay attention to the dialectic came up. The dialectic emerged from the introduction, from the advancement of technology. So this is light of dialectic that in one side, technology always come with benefit. But at the same time, we cannot neglect the unintended consequences of the emergence of technology. Not always negative, sometimes also positive. Let me give you a simple example. Facebook. When Facebook developed by Mark Zuckerberg, the first value injected to that technology is to connect people. But then, later on, the users of Facebook creatively finding new values and injected to this technology, not only to connect people, but also to, you can name it, to bully people, to persuade people, to manipulate people, and so on and so forth. Not only to connect. So new values has been injected to the technology, and this is not always congruent, consistent with the values injected by the designer. So that's the fact. We cannot neglect that social fact. Because to me, for example, this microphone is not a material technology. It's always socio-material technology. Information technology, internet, social media is not technological artifact unseen, but it's socio-material artifact, or even social artifact, because there are always values injected by the designer when designing the artifact. So this is very important. By elevating our awareness, there's always negative consequences of every technology developed by human. This is the perspective. And then I would like to invite you to see some examples. It's Surveillance Capitalism. This is a book. I think it's very thick, it's around 800 pages, written by the professor from Harvard University, Professor Susanna Zuboff. And this book talks about new breed of capitalism, what she called surveillance capitalism. And in this kind of capitalism, all aspects of human experience are turned into data. So that's why today I'm talking about data, because all is about data. When we are surfing on the internet, we are navigating our mouse through the various marketplace, Amazon, Bukalapak, Tokopedia, and so on and so forth. So all the movement of our mouse, when clicking item, icon, product, services, are being recorded. And using this data, a lot of things can be done by the companies. For example, by identifying the pattern of our use, our preference of buying, or even they can also giving advice to the users. When you buy this book, normally you are interested in that book. Then they offer you with like a combined product, bundled product. And to what extent they will manipulate our thinking. And many of us then eventually buy the product, buy the service impulsively because of that kind of manipulation. So this is the core of surveillance capitalism. But then the last point is very important, because sometimes we feel that we are feel comfortable, and we are not it doesn't matter for us to sacrifice our privacy, our right to buy the convenience. And that will change how we think, because our privacy is not longer get our attention, because we sell it with a small price to get the comfortable experience. So that situation is capitalized by giant technological providers, Google, Meta, and so on and so forth. So that's the one example about the use of data to surveil, to monitor our behavior, our habit. The second example, around 8 years ago, in 1916, Clearview AI, this is one company in United States, developed a state-of-the-art facial recognition service. And they declared that the product they developed is for law enforcement, for government official, large corporation. How the product work? The product is AI-based, collected multi-billion image database from the internet. And if you feed the system with an image of somebody, of someone, in a very short time, the system will give you feedback. Who is that? The name, the addresses, the social connection, and other private information. The question is that how the company, Clearview AI, collect the data through the internet. If we put our data on the internet, who is the owner of the data? Is still us, or become a public property? That creates question to answer, issues to ponder. It's still my data, not their data. If you visited my Facebook page, what I post on my Facebook page is still mine. It's not yours. You have to get my permission to use it for other purposes. That's the basic principle. But then, even though the problem is very obvious, the system is still used actively by United States law enforcement agencies. We have ethical dilemma here. There's another question, another example. Still another illustration. Cambridge Analytica is UK-based political consultant. In 2016, The company collected personal data from 200,000 Facebook users. And they analyzed the data they collected without consent from the users to profile the users. And then the training data, 200,000 Facebook users, provide like pattern. And this pattern of profile then were used to profile 87 million Facebook users. What the purpose? The purpose is to create targeted political campaign during the campaign period of Donald Trump versus, I think, Hillary Clinton at the time, 2016. And we know that the winner of that election, 2016, in the United States, was Donald Trump. They used data without consent from Facebook, using the help of third party, Cambridge Analytica, and then they use it to micro-targeting of political campaign. What the harmful effect of micro-targeting? It exploits personal data without consent. They have to get my permission to use my data, but they don't use it. They don't use it, and they use the data for other purposes without explicit permission. It conceals its true nature. For example, I can send you as a political figure, for example. I would like all of you to elect me. I send you personal emails, and I can send different email to each of you to meet you with your character, to meet with your preference. What the ultimate goal is, I persuade you that I am the best candidate to elect. What the problem? Each of you cannot see what others get, what the message get by others. And we cannot validate it to each other. Even though there's not the correct information, is hoax, for example, misinformation, disinformation, and so on and so forth. We cannot verify. We cannot verify. Because the information is very personalized. That's the harm side of micro-targeting. Political campaign should be open. Everyone can do witness. Everyone can validate the information provided by the candidate. We cannot do that in very personal channel like email. It's not allowed actually, because we cannot guarantee that all of us will have the similar or the same message that can be validated to each other. That the situation that we should pay attention to this one. And that's the negative effect, negative impact of the use of technology in this regard is on political aspect. This is the power because of the data. Susanna Zuboff called it instrumentarian power. And this power is very, very difficult to beat, even by the nation, by the government. Because they collect a vast amount of data, and they can process it, and navigate it, manipulate the user, and so on and so forth. And if you see, I make users bold over there, because according to Susanna Zuboff, the term users is only used into context. They are not just consumers, but users. One is the drug users. The second one is information technology users, internet users, social media users, not consumers. Because drug and internet or information technology have a similar effect, addiction. So that's why, to some point, I would like to invite you to reflect when we are talking about social media. What is the product? The social media itself? The content? Or us? The product is us. Because without the users, they cannot sell services. If all the users of one social media platform revoke the membership, subscription, they cannot sell the services to others. So we are the product. We are not the consumers. So that's why they call it users. Yeah. That's instrumentarian power. That's very, very difficult to defeat because of the condition that our data is on the hand, and even without our consent, and even we notice it. This is the way instrumentarian power works. At least three schemes we can see here. One is tuning. By adjusting digital environment to increase data capture and user engagement. For example, if you are using TikTok and you choose one channel about, for example, say, dangdut, song, for example. And then you scroll it down. So we will find similar content every time. This is tuning. To maintain your attention. To keep your engagement. And the second one is herding. Steering user behavior toward desired action using predictive analytics. If you are visiting, for example, Amazon.com, and you are going to buy books, and you browsing the book, and then at the end of the bottom of the page, you will see the offering of bundled book. If you buy this book and that book, that will save you this kind of money, dollars, pounds, euros, and so on and so forth. And this third one is by conditioning, shaping user habit through repeated stimuli, reward, and punishment. If you are using, for example, I will say Gojek, GoFood, for Indonesian users. And many students always see the promo box. This conditioning. Nasi goreng spesial. 50% off. There's a conditioning. And we will happily choose that. And we do not realize that we sacrifice our sovereignty, our liberty. That's how instrumentarian power works without our notice. So this is another example. Our friend in Uyghur, China. Chinese government use facial recognition technology, which is integrated into China's rapidly expanding network of surveillance camera. By feeding the system with your photo or my photo, they can find me immediately, not more than 10 minutes. Because all the camera installed in various places are connected. And that is a developed algorithm that can search in multi-billion images rapidly, quickly. It's a kind of negative impact, unintended consequences of the emergence of technology with all the form. Computational propaganda is another example. And this is AI-equipped social media. And you can see that this system have undermined human rights because we will lose, our liberty will get lost. We will sacrifice our dignity, sovereignty, using this computational propaganda. And this propaganda is used by many countries around the world, including Indonesia. In 2020, for example, they used cyber troop. And these cyber troops are found in 81 countries around the world. And out of them, 57 countries use automated account, is robot or bot. And in 79 countries, they use human-created account to navigate citizen behavior, to manipulate the opinion, and so on and so forth. It happened also in Indonesia. So this is another grim scenario. This is a kind of somehow new book by Guriev and Treisman. The title is Spin Dictators. This is a new breed of dictators in the 21st century that no longer use military force, spreading fear, terror, but they use manipulation. So authoritarianism is not longer using military force now, but they're using data to manipulate the perception, the opinion of the citizen. They control the information. They craft, they build images. I'm a good leader. I have a good sensitivity to the poor, to the marginalized society. But the question is that the fact or manipulated fact? The real situation or manipulated reality? This is what done by spin dictators. When I read this book, I have to confess, there is no Indonesia in that book. But I feel like deja vu. Oh, I witnessed this situation. Surround me. I know this event. This has happened in my country, but it's no Indonesia here. It's spin dictators. So this the second part, and the last part is about standpoint. So this is about our attitude toward data and the challenge ahead. This is our attitude. There's something around here. Huh? Okay. The attitude is very simple, actually. Very simple. Everybody can understand it clearly, quickly, in a simple way about responsibility. Data need to be managed and utilized in a responsible manner. This, without doubt, is very understandable. We need to store it safely. If it doesn't get into the wrong hand. So we have to keep it safely, securely. And the last one, for example, okay. We have to make sure that we involve experts to process the data, to analyze the data, so we don't get a wrong conclusion about the data. because data can easily be manipulated, presented in misleading way. It's very, very, very simple. And the last one, we also need professionals who can differentiate, who can recognize bias in algorithm. Because the algorithm, for example, the one used by the social media is not transparent. We cannot know it exactly what kind of algorithm they use. For example, in your timeline, Facebook timeline, suddenly a lot of commercial pop up. And we do not know how they filter that commercial. The diverse news pop up on our screen without we knowing the algorithm. Because that also something that make what we call echo chambers. When you attach to a specific group of people with a similar perspective, with the same aspiration, and another group will not be exposed to the information that pop up in your screen, because the algorithm already filter what kind of information will send to you and what kind of information will send to another group. And that will even make the echo chamber stronger without having opportunity to discuss with each other. So this the attitude, our attitude toward data, and this is an example of algorithm bias. For example, this is a student from MIT. They investigate the gender and racial bias within facial recognition. You know, every algorithm, AI-based algorithm, always using training data collected from different sources, and this training data is using to train the algorithm to recognize person, for example. And if you feed them with a specific input, they will use the training data to provide you a feedback. If the training data is biased, it's likely we will get a biased feedback. This is the situation, because the training data of facial recognition technology using white-skinned people, if you feed it with the darker skin photo or image, they will not provide 100% correct feedback. For example, to recognize this is male or female, this is young or old. For us, it's also difficult. For example, if we meet with our fellow from Europe or from United States, it's old or young. It's very difficult. It's also difficult for them to recognize us. Prof. Buti Dedin is old or young. It's very difficult. So this is the data used to train the system. If there's a weakness in that data, so the response, the feedback provided by the system for a certain input is not 100% correct. So we cannot rely 100% on that system. This is example of algorithm bias. So I would like you to invite you to this basic data ethics. One is about ownership. An individual has ownership over her or his personal information. I already mentioned that the data, the photo, the information I put on my Facebook wall is mine, not yours, not others. Transparency. If someone would like to collect data from us, make sure that we get the information, how the data will be collected, be stored, be analyzed, be used for different purposes. I think sometimes we freely, happily give our data to others without questioning anything. For example, in the shopping mall, what is your phone number? You just write it happily. And then you will get a WhatsApp message from another company, for example. They sell the data to other companies. Transparency. Privacy is very important. Intention. This also should be clear, and the owner of the data should be know the intention clearly. That's why the consent, informed consent. So the term inform is very important. We give our consent, we agree because we have already informed. Not manipulated consent. Informed consent is very important. And also the outcome is very important also to consider. Because the incentive could be good, but the outcome can be harmful. For example, because of the lack of data, the leakage of data. In English, the sabotage data center. So the authority, for example, the organization, the companies, the government already tried their best, but then the hackers steal the data, sell the data in black market for financial purpose, and then your data get into the wrong hand. This is about the outcome. It's a very basic data ethic. It's very important to reconsider because many of us already forget these things. So, this or that deficit. The direction is blurred. It's not clear. It's not clear. And this is very important to be discussed. And throughout my discussion, I never mention legal. I only mention ethical. Because ethical consideration is above the legal consideration in this sense. It's very difficult to mention it is correct if I sacrifice my privacy to get my convenience, for example. So this is the challenge ahead. So the vast amount of data being collected and processed, and this can stimulate innovation in numerous ways. We will agree clearly without doubt. But then, the line between ethical and ethical practices is more blurred. It's not easy to draw the very clear demarcation line between ethical and unethical practices. So that's why the responsibility is very important. Moral, ethical compass is very important because you can manipulate data in a vacuum without being noticed by others, without being monitored by the authorities. So the ethical compass is very important. So this book are needed. It's just an example. And last one is our choice. Rule the data is correct, but is to rule the world greedily without respecting others, what I call unethical data crazy. Or we rule the data, but to make a better world for you and for me and the entire human race, what I call ethical datacracy. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you very much for Director for the enlightening speech and also for the exceptional insights. Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the main agenda, we invited all the leaders, all the speakers, all the distinguished guests to capture a moment with photo and picture. So we invited all the guests, the leaders of faculty, and also the distinguished speakers to come forward and take a capture moment with photo. For the committee, the time is yours. Once again, we invited all our distinguished guests to come forward and take a moment together. All right, we will start the photo session. Countdown from 3. Oh yeah, still arranging? Yeah. Okay, countdown, 3, 2, 1. Big smile. Once more, yeah. From the press and journalists. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, another one. Oh, okay. Change position. Yeah. Together with the students, all the students, please stand by. Give your best smile. Okay, everybody, you can stand up. Yeah, everyone, please stand up. Yeah. Everyone, please stand up. Okay, for the speakers, you may sit down. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but for maybe we can just stand still first. Yeah. Okay. Okay, for the guests, please, you may sit down, take position. Countdown. Give a big smile. 3, 2, 1, smile. Once again, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay. Is there any specific style? Okay. No. Okay, thank you. Please give round of applause for this photo session. All right, distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, the following agenda is the first Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology and Society 2024. Will be led by the moderator, Ms. Gemilang Mahardhika, SHLLM. Currently serves as a lecturer with the area of expertise in international law, international private law, and international dispute resolution. For her, the stage takeover is yours. Please give round of applause to Ms. Gemilang.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable, our Chancellor of Universitas Islam Indonesia, Professor Fathul Wahid, who has enlightened us with the keynote speech. Thank you, Bapak. The Honorable, the Dean of Faculty of Law, Professor Budi Agus Riswandi. The Honorable, the Vice Dean on Resource Management, Ibu Sri Hastuti Puspitasari. The Honorable, our Vice Dean on Religious, Students and Alumni Affairs, who will also serve as one of our distinguished speakers today, Bapak Agus Triyanta, PhD. The Honorable, the Head of Department and Secretary of Department, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. The Honorable Head of Study Programs and Secretary of Study Programs at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Our distinguished speakers for the day, we have the Honorable Dr. Nurhafilah binti Musa. We have Bapak Agus Triyanta, PhD. And then we have joining us from the Zoom meeting, Professor Lindsey from University of Melbourne and Dr. Farhat Ullah from the University of Warwick, United Kingdom. Last but not least, the tireless committee, paper reviewers, paper presenters, and our dearly beloved lecturers and students who have dedicated their time for the commencement of our international conference on law, society, and technology, the first ever that the postgraduate program has ever commenced. Ladies and gentlemen, before we invite our distinguished speakers, I would like us to think of very short, small issue, but the impact is quite huge. Now, the reason why we opted for law, society, and technology as the grand theme of our agenda today is because these three aspects of human lives are highly inseparable. First, the human communion slowly but surely are forming society. And then the existence of society, we develop our tools, our technology along the line. From the ancient age of hunting with sticks and stones, and then the building of the first ever fire that human life has ever seen, and then all the way to the artificial intelligence that we have at the very modern day today. Now, they say the law must follow suit with all of these technological developments. And they also said that the law has always come late. Hukum selalu terlambat, as they say in bahasa Indonesia. Now, today we will try to prove whether the law really has always coming late when it comes to society and technological development. So please join me to welcome our distinguished speakers that will be joining us on stage today. First of all, we have Ibu Dr. Nurhafilah binti Musa from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Please welcome Ibu. And then we have Ayahanda Agus Triyanta, PhD, from our very own Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Please welcome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our beloved guests, I'm sure every one of us here cannot wait any longer for the commencement of the seminar. Now, please join me to invite our first speaker for today. She is Dr. Nurhafilah Musa from Universiti Kebangsaan, Malaysia. Ibu Dr. Nurhafilah Musa served as a university lecturer in Universiti Kebangsaan, Malaysia. She obtained her degree of Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Melbourne, Australia in 2016. And then her areas of expertise include but not limited to the religion, particularly usul fiqh, Islamic family law, policies and law, particularly Islamic law and constitutional law, and also policies and law, particularly on undang-undang perlembagaan, or should I translate institutional law, constitutional law. Okay, thank you, Ibu. Please, this is our time to listen from Ibu Nurhafilah Musa. The time is yours, Ibu.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting representative from the Law Faculty of National University Malaysia UKM to this wonderful, beautiful campus. I'm very honored to be here, and to our esteemed guests, Honorable Vice Dean and all the lecturers. I'm very honored to be here in front of all of you. So time is given is very limited, but the points are a lot for me to share with all of you. So I'm just going to give some of my thoughts regarding democracy and society in Malaysia. And this is, I caveat from the very beginning that this is just some snapshots, some thoughts, okay, not an overall overview of what is happening in Malaysia for the past few years. Right, so for some of you who are not familiar with Malaysia, because Malaysia is surrounded by Indonesia. We have Indonesia at the south of Sabah and Sarawak, the Pulau Kalimantan. That's going to be the new capital of Indonesia in a few years' time. We also have Riau, Lingga and Sumatra on our southern part, and we have Thailand also on our north part, and also Singapore and Brunei. So we are surrounded by our friends in ASEAN. So these are the flags. The flags are all symbolize all the states in Malaysia. We are a federation, okay, a federal country, unlike Indonesia. So we have 2 levels of government. All right, so this is basically an overall structure of Malaysian government. These few slides is just to give an overview to set the stage of the discussions, so you have some idea of the context of the government that I'm going to elaborate on. And it's not, how do I say, it's not exactly the same as how Indonesian government operates. So bear with me, okay? So there might be some terminologies or some points that might not be clear to you, but I will try to make it as easy as possible. So as a federation, we have 2 levels of government. I put the state governments and the federal government side by side because a federation is actually a partnership. There's no government above the other, because the source of power from the federal government comes from the state government, and both actually share their power. So how we distribute the power in Malaysia, we have 3 lists in our federal constitution: federal list, state list and concurrent list. Federal list means the power lies with the federal government. State list means the power here, I mean the power regarding legislative power. Sebagaimana di Indonesia itu Dewan perundangan gitu ya. Perwakilan, okay. And also executive power, okay. So federally, stateless and concurrently refers to executive and legislative powers of the government. Concurrently means matters that is shared between the federal government and the state government. For example, welfare, for example, protection of children. So those matters are shared between the federal government and the state government. We also have financial powers and judicial powers. Financial powers are also shared between the federal and the state, but judicial power, the main judicial power under our civil court lies with the federal government, but the states also have powers for under the Syariah Court or Mahkamah Anak Negeri in Sabah and Sarawak. Right, so overall, jadi slides ini campur ya, bahasa Inggeris dan bahasa Malaysia, tapi saya rasa tak ada masalah kot, semua boleh faham. Ni memang terma-termanya dalam bahasa Malaysia, jadi boleh tahu sikit-sikit kan, tak ada masalah. Right, so this is the structure of our federal government. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is not the head of the government, he is the head of the state. Okay, ketua negara, kepala negara, bukan kerajaan. Kerajaannya di bawah Perdana Menteri, PM. That is appointed after the general election, a person who most likely to command the confidence of the majority after the general election will be appointed as the Prime Minister. So our election is not electing the Prime Minister, our election is electing the representative from the political party. So when the majority, because our system is first past the post, you can Google or ask ChatGPT what this first past the post means. So first past the post means who has the most seats, okay, in the legislative body will become the government. And in our case, in 2022, when we had our last general election, there was no clear winner. Alright, so then it falls upon the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to decide who has the most seat or who commands the confidence of the majority. And in November 2022, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim was appointed as the 10th Malaysian Prime Minister. So as you can see, the executive and the cabinet and also the judiciary, and we have the ministries, I think this is similar to Indonesia, and we have the Dewan Negara and Dewan Rakyat. Why do we have two? I think in Indonesia we have more than that. We just have two. Dewan Rakyat is those appointed, those who elected through elections, and Dewan Negara are those either appointed by the Agong or appointed by the states as state representative in the legislature. And we also have the courts. At the state level, it's a duplication of what we have at the federal, except we have the Syariah Court and we have local government. Okay, so this is so federation is basically two levels of government and having similar functions to one another. Okay, so when we talk about democracy and society in Malaysia, these are the basic features that if you learn about the Malaysian legal system, like I shared with some undergraduate students yesterday, these are the basic features that you have to understand, and these are the basic features which I teach my students in constitutional law lectures. I teach constitutional law, and usually my students will take about 2 semesters, equivalent to 28 weeks, to study all these points. So I will not be able to analyze all this at one go with all of you, but I think it's enough for you to get some snapshots of these are first the traditional elements in our constitution, and we also have our modern elements in our constitution. So Islam as the religion of the federation, we retain the constitutional monarchy system. We also have Bahasa Melayu as our official language and the special position of the Malay. At the same time, when we draft our constitution, which is drafted by the Reid Commission, they infused or included some modern or Western elements in our constitution, which is the federal system, the separation of power, supremacy of the constitution, citizenship, and also human rights, which I think most of the modern elements are similar to what you have in Indonesia. Am I going too fast? Is that okay? My pace? Okay, all right, okay. Why do I have to talk about Malaysia? Okay, this is the similarity between Malaysia and Indonesia. Okay, sebab kita semua Nusantara kan, jadi mesti ada persamaannya. So first of all, we have multi-ethnic and multi-religious society. I think we all can agree with that, isn't it? From Aceh to Papua, I don't know how many ethnics we have in Indonesia. I think it's more than 10, I'm sure, or more than 100. And berapa banyak pulau ada di Indonesia ini? 1,000, 5,000? 11,000? Malaysia tidak sebanyak itu. Rakyat Malaysia 30 juta plus minus. Rakyat Indonesia? Jadi rakyat Malaysia hanya 10% sahaja daripada keseluruhan Indonesia. Jadi tapi ada persamaannya. Okay, ada persamaannya. Jadi what are the good things that we have, we can learn from each other. So we have a multi-ethnic and multi-religious society, meaning that we deal with religious or ethnic issues daily, monthly, weekly, on a normal basis. Am I right? I mean, the misunderstanding or the miscommunication or whatever, the religious or misunderstanding is something that we have to deal with every day, isn't it, whether you like it or not. So Malaysian have Malaysian style, Indonesian have Indonesian style. How do they deal with all these issues? But it is something actually very common in all multi-ethnic and multi-religious societies. Next is we have democratic transition, post-authoritarianism. Susah mau baca gitu. Maksudnya senang je. Dekat Malaysia ni banyak kali tukar Perdana Menteri pun ataupun Menteri Besar pun kami enggak bergaduh, itu saja. Bergaduh mulut itu biasa. Cakap-cakap dalam media sosial itu pun biasa, tapi angkat parang, angkat pedang, angkat senapan enggak ada. Itu saja maksud dia. Okay. The whole legal jargon is sounds so complicated and so sophisticated, but actually that's the basic point that I want to deliver. Because I think democracy teach us that it's okay to disagree, right? But we have to disagree respectfully, right? It's okay we don't agree with the government, but you have to say it respectfully with decorum, not to simply throw out whatever you want to say without thinking the repercussions of what you said. So because democracy encourages us to speak up, right? But you have to do it in a correct manner, in a correct way, and you have to understand that the political party or the prime minister or the president are not there forever, because they are chosen by the people, okay, and for the people, right? So in Malaysia, during the COVID-19, we experienced first Tun Mahathir, after Tun Mahathir is Tan Sri Muhyiddin, after Tan Sri Muhyiddin was Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri, and then the election. So we have 3 prime ministers within 5 years, okay? We also have a state government that also changes the chief ministers every 2-3 years, like Sabah, I think Kedah, okay? But still, those transitions happen peacefully. And one of the secret why that could happen peacefully is we have very good civil servants. Meaning to say, civil servants really uphold the neutrality. So whoever comes into the government, they will always give their cooperation, because they work for the people, they don't work for the chief minister or the prime minister. The loyalty of the civil servants is to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong or to the Sultan of the States, not to the political parties that hold the power at that time. So that makes the transition smoother, even though of course we have some hiccups, but for the past, I think, 10 years, we have all this transition, either the state level or the federal level. It all has been done peacefully and no riots, no demonstrations, okay? All right, the only demonstration we had recently is only on Palestine, that's it, okay? All right, so the third one is electoral democracy with periodic elections. We are going to have we always have these by-elections, okay, because people come and go, okay, but when a representative at the state level or the federal level pass away, they died, then we have by-elections. We were just done with Sungai Bakat election in Pulau Pinang, and a few weeks ago it was election in Nenggiri in Kelantan, very southern part of Kelantan near the Orang Asli area, and in a few weeks time, I think or next week, we're going to have another by-election in Mahkota in Johor at the southern part of Malaysia. So we have that periodic elections every 5 years, and in between you also have by-elections, but all those elections are done peacefully. So that's I think that's also similar to what you experience in Indonesia. Next is the challenges of corruption and political patronage, also similar between both of our countries. This one, if I elaborate further, I will not be able to come to Indonesia again or come back to Malaysia again. You don't understand my joke, never mind. So I'm not going to elaborate further on the challenges of corruption and political patronage because it's a very sensitive issue, and I think you can simply Google it and you can just find all those issues. But basically, we have a lot of court cases. We have some cases we successfully charged the person, got conviction, or some case we got DNA discharge, not amounting to acquittal. So there's a lot of issues regarding that. And then we have role of Islam in politics. This is also similar to Malaysia and Indonesia, where Islam role here is not about kalau di Malaysia itu biasanya orang guna istilah dalam media sosial menunggang agama. Tak tahulah dekat Indonesia istilah tu diguna pakai ke tak. Jadi ada orang kata parti ni tunggang agama, lepas tu parti ni begitu, parti ni begini, itu di Malaysia. Di Indonesia mungkin ada juga tapi istilahnya mungkin berbeza gitu ya. Tapi apa maksud saya di sini role of Islam in party politics is that it's not, I don't mean the politician use the religion. What I mean is that religion of Islam become one of the aspiration of the political parties, some of the political parties that involved in the elections. How the political party brought about that notion of Islam, either in the implementation of legal or either in the policy making process or whatever, it depends on party to party approach, right? So that's how Islam influence or play an important role in politics, either in Malaysia or Indonesia. Next one, last but not the least, ethnic and religious political influence. Because in Malaysia we have racial-based political party, we also have multi-racial political party, but so far, even though Malay is the majority in Malaysia, it's still quite challenging to have a multi-racial political party. As what you can see now, even though recently we have the Islamic political party PAS in Malaysia amended their party constitution to include the non-Muslim as the associate member of PAS. We also have representative in the AP who are Malay, Muslim. We also have a party from Sabah Sarawak also being more open to be involved in the politics in Semenanjung. But still that ethnic and racial or religious basis of the political party is still there, even though some younger generations have a more open or broad approach to politics, but most political parties are still have some religious or ethnic or racial basis. So that's, I think, quite similar between both of our countries. Now, to the crux of my talk today. What can we learn from Malaysian democracy? Okay, so this is my 5 takeaways. You might agree, you might disagree, it's up to you. First of all, as I mentioned, it's a peaceful transition of power, vibrant political participation. As I was talking with Bapak Agus yesterday, in ASEAN, okay, we talk about ASEAN, the 10 countries in ASEAN, the most country with drama, I think political drama is Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. Am I right? These 3 countries, if you look at the international news, it's always full of political drama. It's never boring. It's endless sources of academic writing. If you want to do masters, you want to do PhD, there's a lot of things that you can write about these 3 countries because there's a lot of things ongoing. But the good thing is, we don't have war, right? The atmosphere of political is very vibrant, the participation is very vibrant, but they don't have, I mean, literally war with weapons, right? So that's, to me, that's good because the people realize that the government, the political party come and go. So they can just basically choose and elect whoever that they want, they feel that they are confident with. If after 5 years you are not satisfied, out you go and we choose another person to become the president or the prime minister. So it's very vibrant and it's very, how do you say, very fast-paced, and there's a lot of discussion on politics during Hari Raya is normal in Malaysia, okay? They don't fight. We can have one family with one PAS, one UMNO, one DAP, one PKR, and one non-partisan. That's normal during Hari Raya to have that discussion, okay? if you go to coffee shop in the villages, it's normal for them to have all this political debate, but they don't fight. They don't merajuk or menangis or marah, no. They just have a debate, friendly debate, and then they go back home tomorrow, debate again. You know, it's like we call it, I call my father-in-law having a very high-speed internet in the coffee shop. Because even if they don't search the internet or watch the television regularly to get the news, the coffee shop is always the center of information. I think it's the same in Indonesia, right? If you go to coffee shop, it's the center of information. So the political participation is very, very vibrant. Okay, next, the diverse and competitive party system. Because I think Malaysia has come into a full circle. We have now experienced all political parties becoming the government, all right? So it's very competitive. So who is going to be the next Prime Minister is an open question. No longer Barisan Nasional can claim, or DAP, or PKR, or PAS, or Biar Bersatu, nobody can claim that it's their seat anymore. It's a very diverse and competitive party system. We have experienced all, so the Malaysian know all. They just feel that, okay, if you're not satisfied, then out you go, come a new one, right? So the party has to be very, very strategic in winning the support of the people. Growing civil liberties. One of the main drive in winning the elections in Malaysia is social media. I think it's the same in Indonesia too. So most political parties will leverage on the media social to gain support. And this shown in the previous general election. And the last one is multicultural representation. If you see our parliament, come and visit Malaysia and make sure you visit our parliament during the parliamentary session, and you can see the representation are from various races, various ethnic. So no one can claim he is not represented in the parliament. However, despite the strength or despite the positive aspects of our democracy, we also have our weaknesses. As I mentioned, ethnic-based politics, okay? This can develop into a more racial policy, racially not accepting the other ethnic group. So this is, on one hand, is good because it makes an ethnic strong politically, but then it will sort of leave the other people outside of that circle. So it has both a double-edged sword issue here when you talk about ethnic-based politics in Malaysia. The second one is gerrymandering, electoral manipulation. Democracy is good, but when the field is a level one. If you have a level playing field, it's a very good system. But if the system is open to manipulation, then we have a problem. If you can see how the US election has been going for the past few years, there are many people in the world who are being disillusioned by democracy. And even, I think there's a book about being disillusioned about democracy, but I can't remember the title of the book. So how do we rectify that? Okay, that's $1 million question. I think it's the same in Indonesia, same in everywhere in the world. So how do we move forward but still having trust in democracy when the system, if we listen to the lecture before there's a keynote address regarding AI, it's quite scary, isn't it? So it's no longer we have the freedom to choose, but our choosing is being manipulated by the technology. So how do we move forward in that situation? So this has to do a lot with technology, this has to do a lot with the digital development that we have now. The third one is limits on civil liberties. This is also quite a big issue because according to report by TikTok, Malaysian government is one of the government that requests TikTok company to remove some of the TikTok accounts owned by Malaysian citizens. So this has caused an uproar in Malaysia, and there's still some, discussions on how to move forward, because on one hand, we don't want people to go overboard in their freedom of expression, but at the same time, you don't want to stifle whatever that they want to say, because it's democracy anyway. So to strike that balance is the hard task of any government in the world, including Malaysia. The third one, the fourth one is weakening of judicial independence. This is in relation to the fifth point regarding corruption and political patronage, where we have cases that's halfway been tried at the court but been pulled back. We have cases that we think we know the end of the case, but somehow it doesn't turn out to be what it should be. So that part has a lot to do with how the government work and how the political party influence the machineries of the government. And this also again make people disillusioned about democracy, because ideally the politics should not spill into the government machineries, but once it spill over the government machineries, then people gradually will lose trust of the government machinery. And at the end of the day, people will say, what's the point to go for election, because it doesn't change anything. But then we cannot lose hope, because that's the only hope that we have, isn't it? If you don't go to election, then you basically let anyone else choose for you. So I think that's the role that I always tell my students, my law students, that is the role of law students. Either you're at the bachelor level, the master's level, or PhD level, to work towards that ideal state, to uphold the rule of law. Because there are many people who actually don't know about the law, but they think they know about the law. So it is for us that know that is learned in law to actually make sure that we uphold rule of law. Okay, last but not least, regarding improvements that we can make, I think we might share the similar improvements that Indonesian also can make. Okay, if any of you are interested to do comparative study between Indonesia and Malaysia, you are welcome to come to UKM to do your PhD after this. So regarding electoral reforms, we had, for the past few days, we had a lot of elections regarding democracy in Indonesia too. So it's very interesting that there's a lot of improvements in the conduct of elections, but there's still a lot of reforms to be done in terms of how the whole election being operated at the ground level. So in terms of the campaign, in terms of the regulations, okay, there's a lot more reforms to be done. Strengthening judicial independence, I think I've mentioned just now regarding the judicial independence issue. So we have a system in Malaysia, we have Judicial Appointment Commission, but the issue is not just on the appointment of the judiciary, but the conduct of the high-profile cases in Malaysia. So that part is the most challenging one. The third one is enhancing press freedom and civil liberties. I have mentioned an example of TikTok account in Malaysia. The fourth one is promoting inclusive issue-based politics. Okay, this one is actually difficult because people are easily swayed by emotions. People don't want to think too much, right? You just like to read the headlines. Kalau posting tu, baca dia punya tajuk saja, betul tak? Details tu tak sempat dah nak baca, scroll je. Lepas tu you pun buat conclusion. Oh, this is my conclusion. But if you read the actual news, it is not what you understood, because the media use clickbait. You realize clickbait? Kita tak pernah dengar clickbait tu apa. Carilah clickbait tu apa. Okay, they make the news attractive to you or controversial or sensational, so that you click on that headlines and then you read and then you discover, oh, it is not as what I expected it to be. Luckily you read, but then there are many people who don't read. Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of it. So we are left with political parties that campaign based on emotional issues that can sway the voters, but not real intellectual, academic, requiring knowledge issues. I think it's similar also to Indonesia, right? If you talk hard, difficult issues, nobody wants to listen to you. Even in this hall, when the topic is difficult to understand, nobody wants to listen to you. People wants to listen to easy things. We were discussing about movie last night. Movie di Indonesia dan Malaysia sudah jadi sama saja. Dulu cerita serius, sekarang cerita apa? Komedi, horror, apa lagi? Romantis, jenaka. Heavy semua enggak mau tengok. Sama saja. Di Malaysia pun begitu juga. Jadi susah mau cakap benda serius gitu. Sedangkan negara perlu bincang benda yang serius. You cannot rule the government based on comedy, right? You cannot rule the government based on petty issues or emotional issues. So how do you want to inculcate in the society that we need to develop our country based on knowledge, not on emotion, not on who has the highest like, who has the highest view, who is the most popular, who is the most influential, not based on that. So that is, I think, the tussle between the younger generation and the older generation. I'm old, I'm not young anymore. Okay, but I realize that's one of the issues, the tussle that we are facing right now. So that's why it's important for university students to play an important role, to inculcate that knowledge-based decision-making process, not based on emotions. Last but not the least, combating corruption and strengthening accountability. We have the similar difficulties that Indonesia have, because due to economic pressure, some people just bow down to temptations. So there need to be a way how to leverage and technology and how to make sure that civil servants or everyone have adequate resources so that they are not tempted to fall into corruption. So I think what I'm sharing here, I think is similar to both of our countries. This is a never-ending process, a never-ending research issues you will continue to do even you complete your master's, your PhD. These are still going to be interesting issues to venture into, but in 10, 20 years' time, the nature of human is the same, but the problem is going to be more and more complicated. With the AI coming, I'm sure it's going to be much, much more challenging for us in the future. Because identity boleh bertukar sekarang, betul ke Pak? Walaupun nampaknya muka saya, tapi bukan saya, susah. Kita ingatkan suami kita yang message, rupanya orang lain yang ambil identitinya. Susah begitu. Jadi, apa-apa pun saya percaya, I think the most important thing is religion. Pegangan agama itu juga sebenarnya perisai kepada kita semua. Lebih-lebih lagi kalau di Universitas Islam Indonesia itu Islam itu dalam nama universitasnya, jadi sepatutnya Islam itu menjadi asas kepada segala apa yang diperbincangkan. Kerana Islam adalah penyelesaian sebenarnya. So that's where we should go back to. If we keep on thinking about all the problems and we don't go back to our roots as a Muslim, then we will not be able to actually resolve whatever issues that we have in the either now or in the future. I thank you very much. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ibu Nurhafilah binti Musa. If there's one catchphrase that I could take from the enlightening presentation, as two of the most politically dramatical countries in the region, to the point which even bigger universities in Australia, in New Zealand, in England, has an actual department on Malaysian law studies or Indonesian law studies. There's one key to overcome the dramatical turbulences of our politics, and that is, as per Ibu Nurhafilah binti Musa, is good civil servants. And I think that is one thing that we could look up to when we try to compare between the Indonesian legal system and the Malaysian legal system. Now, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, allow me to welcome our second presenter for this morning. He is Bapak Dr. Farhat Ullah, who will be presenting on government and legal policy in the era of digital disruption. Bapak Farhat Ullah will be joining us all the way from the University of Warwick in United Kingdom by Zoom meeting. He currently pursues postdoctoral research fellow at University of Warwick, United Kingdom. He obtained his PhD degree in the Department of Social Work, University of Peshawar, and currently he serves as the lecturer of social work at the Department of Social Work and Sociology at Kohat University of Science and Technology in Pakistan. Please welcome Dr. Farhat Ullah. Dr. Farhat Ullah, are you with us?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, my voice is clear.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, organizers, and honored guests. Thank you for joining me today. It's a pleasure to discuss a topic that is not only timely, but increasingly significant. The topic I will be discussing is government and legal policy and the era of digital disruption. So a subject of immense importance as we navigate the rapid technological advancement reshaping our world, our community, our society. As we stand on the precipice of a new era, it is vital to examine how digital technologies are reshaping the landscape of governance and legal frameworks. We must consider how these changes present both opportunities and challenges for governments, policymakers, and legal professionals worldwide. So, welcome everyone, and thank you for being here today. We live in a time of unprecedented change where technology is evolving at an exponential pace. This digital disruption is not just changing the industries, it's reshaping the very foundations of our societies, including government and legal systems. So first of all, let me introduce the topic of digital disruption. Most of us are aware about it, that digital disruption, it is fueled by the innovations like AI, blockchains, and big data. And we all know that these things revolutionized how we live, how we work, and how we govern our systems, our government systems. It challenges traditional norms and compels us to rethink the roles of government and the legal framework that underpins the society. Now let me try to more explain the theme of the presentation, digital disruption. Digital disruption is, I a little bit explain that it refers to the transformation which is caused by the emerging digital modern technologies and some business models. It also disrupts the established industries, also like consumer behavior and challenges which is existing regulatory structures. So from the rise of Finch to the emergence of smart cities, digital disruption is pervasive. I think it's now open, the Zoom camera.
We are unable to see you yet, Dr. Farhat Ullah.
Yeah, the camera is on. I don't know why it's like. Can you see me now?
We can see you now clearly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, for instance, the advent of AI in decision-making processes, so it's very challenging in the present contemporary world. So the conventional understanding of accountability and liabilities. So because of these things, the digital disruption, it makes the things more sensitive. Similarly, if we talk about the blockchain technology, so it also decentralizing the financial systems of the world, different countries of the world as well, and contract enforcement as well. Like we can see that when we open something on, like for example, in a website, so there will be a contract page and we will be enforced to sign that contract page. If we don't sign that, so the window will not move forward. So these things also posing different type of questions about the role of intermediaries, intermediaries like banks and legal professionals as well. So we can say that digital disruption, it transforms everything, and we can consider how in one of the example that how the rise of internet, how it disrupted the traditional media like Facebook and other digital technological modes. So it totally transformed and disrupted the traditional media. I am talking about the television and how e-commerce platforms like Amazon, which is very popular nowadays. So it also changed the whole retail system. So, but it's not just businesses that are impacted. Also the government, the legal system, everything is affected because of this digital disruption. Now, if I move towards the next slide. So in the next slide, we can you can see the role of government and the digital age. So in the digital age, the government face new opportunities, but with these new opportunities, the government also faces new challenges as well as they navigate an increasingly interconnected and technology-driven world. Their role has evolved significantly and it encompasses several key functions as well. So government are now, it is tasked to balance the innovation and regulation. So this means that they must foster technological advancement while pursuing the protection of citizens' rights and public interest. So it means that government should not be reactive, it should be proactive, waiting to regulate after technology has taken root and it can lead towards various loopholes, exploiting the social harm as well. Government, it means that government are responsible for regulating digital spaces to ensure security, to ensure the privacy, to ensure the fairness. This involves creating laws and some new policies, which is related to data protection, cyber security, intellectual property rights, and online business practices. So the rise of global tech companies, it has also necessitated the creation of framework to manage their influence and to prevent monopolies and to protect consumers as well. Now I will move towards the next slide, and in this slide we will talk about legal policy challenges. So there are various types of legal policies challenges. Digital disruption, it has significantly altered the functions of various governments in the world, and it reshaping how public services are delivered, how policies are formulated, and how government engage with citizens. So digital disruption is reshaping how governments operate and how it interact with the citizens. The shift to e-government is perhaps the most visible manifestation of this change. Governments are increasingly adopting various type of digital platforms for service delivery, for improving accessibility, transparency, and various functions, which is like efficiency of the government. However, this transition from like traditional system of governments to e-government, it also raises some questions about data privacy, cyber security, and digital divide. So below you can see there are some key impacts of digital disruption on government functions. The first, like we can see the e-governance, service delivery. So it is also one of, sorry, I think mistakenly showed the wrong slide. Here you can see the e-governance and service delivery. So we can say that digital disruption, it has made several services more efficient, accessible, and under friendly e-government platforms. It allows citizens to access various type of services online, reducing the need of physical interaction. Like, for example, if I am going to open a bank account in the United Kingdom, so most of the bank, there is no need of like going physically to the bank for opening the bank account. You can open the bank account online from your own home where you are physically present, and they will send the ATM card to your home and etc. So this digitalization of government services, it has also streamlined different type of processes, like it reduced bureaucratic issues which specifically we face in the third world countries very commonly as well. The second thing here you can see is the data privacy and security. So as government collect and store vast amounts of data, so the need of stringent data protection laws has become paramount. The General Data Protection Regulation, which is called GDPR, and the European Union, it is a notable example of legislative efforts to safeguard citizen data. However, the global nature of digital platform means that international cooperation is essential to address cross-border data flows and privacy concerns. The third one is cybersecurity threat. The increasing frequency of cyber attacks on government infrastructure highlights the need for comprehensive cybersecurity policies as government continue digitalization, so they become more vulnerable to cyber threats. Protecting sensitive data and critical infrastructure, it has become a top priority, especially in the face of hacking, ransomware attacks, and other forms of cybercrime. So government must collaborate with the private sector, especially private sector entities and international organizations, to develop strategies that enhance resilience against cyber threats. So cyber threats are global, and it requires international cooperation to establish protocols and to share various type of intelligence data and to mitigate the risk especially. So now we will move towards the next slide. This slide shows legal policy challenges. So there are various type of legal policy challenges. One of them is data privacy and security. With the proliferation of data, privacy concerns has intensified with the passage of time. Government must create robust legal frameworks to protect personal data and to ensure the transparency and accountability in data collection and usage. And the second one is intellectual property. So the digital age has blurred the lines of intellectual property rights. Governments need to modernize laws to address the complexities of digital content creation, distribution, and consumption. The third one is cybersecurity. So with the passage of time, cyber threats become more sophisticated. Government must, we can say that the government must protect critical infrastructure and to maintain national security, which is like sometime it can be addressed. And it is one of the most important legal policy challenges to the government around the world. Now the next one is like there are we can take some case studies in global perspective. The first one is GDPR and the European Union, and the second one is China's social credit system. The third one, which I included, is the Estonia's digital policy. So GDPR in the European Union, like the General Data Protection Regulation, which is called GDPR, is a landmark example of a legal framework designed to protect citizens in the digital age. So it sets strict guidelines on data protection and privacy. For example, when I came to England and I joined Warwick University, so the GDPR course was compulsory, and still it is compulsory on every employee and for every student of the university when he enters to the university. So the first thing he must do that is GDPR course, data protection course. So this means that he needed to ensure the privacy, data privacy, and like these things. So the second one is China's social credit system. China's government has implemented a digital social credit system that monitors and rates citizens' behaviors. So while it's an example of leveraging digital technology for governance, it raises significant ethical and legal concerns about privacy and state control. The third one is Estonia's digital society. So Estonia is often hailed as a pioneer in e-governance. The country, its road platforms enable secure data exchange between the government and the databases, allowing citizens to access a wide range of services online. Estonia experience, it demonstrates the potential of digital governance, but also underscores the need of robust cybersecurity and data protection measures. Now, in this slide, you can see the need for collaborative government path forward and policy recommendation. So government, it cannot address digital disruption in isolation. It means that collaboration of the government with the private sector, with the academia and international organization, it is very important, very crucial for developing effective legal policies. Public-private partnership, in the same way, it can also facilitate sharing of expertise and resources, leading to innovative solutions that benefit society as a whole. Now, what can be the path forward? Like, I mean to say the policy recommendation, what can be the policy recommendations? So first of all, in navigating the complexities of digital disruption, so it is very crucial for governments throughout the world and legal system to adopt forward-thinking policies. Here are I can recommend some of the policies. The first one can be to adopt some regulatory framework. The government should develop adaptive regulatory framework that can be quickly updated in response to technological governments, technological advancement. So this must involve the creation of regulatory sandboxes where new technologies can be tested in a controlled environment. So this can be tested in control environment before implementation. The second policy recommendation can be global collaboration or global cooperation. Digital technologies, it is inherently global. So this means that international cooperation, it is very essential. Government, all over the world, they needed to work together to harmonize regulations, to share best practices, and to address also cross-border challenges. Because data privacy is not a national issue, it is an international issue. In the same way, public-private partnership can also be another recommendation, because collaboration between public and private partner sector, it is very critical. So government should engage the private sector, like the technological companies, the legal expert around the world, and the civil society as well, to develop the policies that foster innovation while protecting different type of public interest. In the same way, one of the policy recommendation can be education and capacity building, because there is need of continuous education and capacity building with governments and legal institutions. So policymakers and legal professionals, they must equipped with the knowledge and with the skills to understand and to address the issue of digital technologies. In the same way, the next slide, you can see the future of legal policy in digital world, like what can be the future of legal policies in the digital world. The first one you can see here, the first point is adaptive legal framework. So is technology, it evolves with the passage of time. So there must be some laws to govern it, because adaptive legal framework that can be quickly updated and reinterpreted, it is very essential. In the same way, the second point is ethical consideration, which is also very important. Beyond legality, government must consider the ethical implications of emerging technologies. The creation of ethics committee, like we have in the universities when we are conducting various type of research. So there are some ethical considerations in every research. In the same way, there can be ethical considerations in the technological fields as well. And there needed to be some guidelines for using AI, artificial intelligence, for example, it can also help to ensure the technological advancement aligned with the societal values. It is also very important. And the third one is global coordination. So as we know that digital disruption, it is beyond the boundaries. The impact of digital disruption is beyond the boundaries. So digital disruption, it knows no borders and neither it knows any legal policies. International collaboration, it is very necessary to create standardized regulations that can be enforced globally, preventing regulatory arbitrage and ensuring a level playing field. So now I will move towards the conclusion. In conclusion, I will say that the key lies in proactive governance, adaptive legal framework, and ethical considerations that prioritize the well-being of citizens. Because why we want advancement of technology? Because we do it for the welfare of the people, for the welfare of the society. So we needed to keep in mind the well-being of the citizens for all technological laws, rules, regulations. By embracing these principles, government can not only navigate the challenges of digital disruption, but also the harness its potential to drive a positive change in the society. In the same way, in conclusion, the era of disruption presents both unprecedented opportunities as well and formidable challenges as well for governments and for legal systems. So we navigate this new landscape as imperative that we develop policies that are both innovative and inclusive, ensuring that the benefits of digital technologies are shared worldwide, while mitigating various type of potential risks as well. So the path forward requires a delicate balance between embracing technological advancement and safeguarding the fundamental rights and societal values. So by working together across sectors, across borders and disciplines, we can build a future where digital disruption serves as a force for good, driving progress and improving the lives of people around the world. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Farhat Ullah. Thank you for the enlightening list, a good number of government and legal policy to bridge the digital disruption. Now, ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome our third distinguished speaker for the day, Professor Tim Lindsey from the University of Melbourne, Australia, is joining us via Zoom link. He is one interesting person because Professor Tim Lindsey actually can speak in rather decent Bahasa Indonesia. So your questions may be delivered in Bahasa Indonesia. He is a legal expert on Indonesian law. He has been advising both Australian and Indonesian government. He is the Malcolm Smith Professor of Asian Law, Redmond Berry Distinguished Professor, and the Director of the Center for Indonesian Law, Islam and Society. Please welcome Professor Tim Lindsey.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ibu Gemilang, for inviting me today, another Melbourne Law School Masters alumna. I'm a person who does not know very much about technology, as my children always remind me. And so I'm going to focus today on constitutionalism. And in particular, I want to look at recent events in Indonesia that I think all of you are very familiar with. The rolling crisis in the Constitutional Court. What I want to do today is track through what has happened in the Constitutional Court and how the constitutional crisis that emerged over Decision 90 has played out. To do that, let me share my PowerPoint slides with you. I think you should be able to see the slides now. So Indonesia's amended 1945 constitution gives the DPR enormous power. There could be debate about whether its constitutional power is greater than the president's, but it is clear enough that a president who has a majority vote in the DPR faces very few formal constraints on his or her role. Under the Constitution, the Constitutional Court, or MK, is the only entity with any formal power to check the exercise of the DPR's legislative power. This is because one of its primary functions is precisely striking out DPR statutes that violate the Constitution. Now, to do this effectively, the court must operate without fear of government reprisal. Yet, performing that function brings it into direct conflict with the DPR, guaranteeing that the DPR sees it as a direct opponent and a threat. Of course, many constitutional courts around the world face the same problem, and much has been written about how they manage it. Before the presidency of Jokowi, the court seemed to have independence, at least enough to fulfill its mandate to review legislation effectively most of the time. But under President Jokowi, many of the MK's decisions have frustrated the executive and the legislature. And for some years, therefore, the executive, that is the government of Jokowi, and the legislature, that is the DPR, have conducted an incremental but determined campaign to undermine the MK's capacity to check their power. And this has involved a series of intimidatory interventions and the gradual legislative erosion of the court's power and independence. DPR members are now considering another bill that may expedite the court's demise. At the time of writing, the MK is probably now weaker than ever before since its establishment in 2003. And there's a chain of events that began in 2020 that led to this. I don't have time to run through all those events today, so I will skip over three issues, namely executive legislative tinkering or changing of the rules about judicial tenure, the removal of the then Deputy Chief Justice Aswanto, which was associated with the changes to judicial tenure, and the forgery of a judgment or part of a judgment by the judge who replaced Aswanto, namely Justice Guntur Hamza. Instead, let me go straight to the other sequence of events, and in particular to Decision 90, notorious, the famous Decision 90, and that means we start with the royal wedding. In May 2022, the Chief Justice of the MK, Anwar Usman, married Jokowi's sister, Hidayati. President Jokowi was her wali, signing her away to Usman. This so-called royal wedding sparked much controversy. Not only was it very lavish with guests arriving in helicopters, but it also led to conflict of interest concerns. This is because Anwar Usman's new in-law, President Jokowi, and the DPR that his coalition controls are, of course, automatically default defendants in most MK cases reviewing legislation. So in August 2023, Almas Sakibiru, a student at the University of Yogyakarta, filed a petition in the MK challenging a provision of the 2017 elections law that imposed a minimum age for presidential and vice presidential candidates of 40. And this provision had blocked plans to nominate Jokowi Sang Gibran as a vice presidential running mate for Prabowo Subianto in the February elections. The conflict of interest for Anwar Usman was very clear. In his petition, Sakibiru mentioned Gibran by name not once, but in fact 7 times, and expressed strong support for him. Other parties had filed similar petitions around the same time, including the PSI party, which was led by Gibran's younger brother, Kaisang, installed as chair just a couple of days after he'd even joined the party. And of course, the impact of the decision on Gibran's political fortunes was obvious, whether or not he could run as vice president. Now, the court's code of ethics specifically requires a judge to recuse himself, that is to step down, if he himself or a member of his family has a direct interest in the decision. So too does Article 17 of the law on judicial power. There is no question, therefore, that Anwar Usman should have recused himself. And perhaps he says that in his interesting book, Independensi Kekuasaan Hakiman. We'll see what he says in that book. Instead, Usman intervened in the judicial deliberations to ensure a majority of judges would reverse the court's position. It's important to understand that in many cases before this, the court had upheld the age limits on candidacy for elected officials. And they did so on the basis that this is a matter of so-called open legal policy, meaning it was a matter to be left to the DPR to decide. So on the morning of Monday, the 16th of October, there was no legal surprise when the judges read out 3 decisions in court. In each of those decisions, the MK, by a majority of 6 judges to 2, decided that the age limitation did not violate the Constitution, and they left it at 40 years. Now, you know, that's 6 judges to 2, 8 judges, because 1 judge did not issue a decision in those cases, and that, of course, was Anwar Usman. But by the time the judgment in Decision 90 was read out by the court that afternoon, the judges had changed their minds. By a majority of 5 to 4, that did include a judgment by Usman, the court decided to maintain the 40-year restriction, but to include an exception for candidates who served as a regional head. Gibran, 36, just happened to have served as mayor of Solo in central Java, a job his father once held, and so he became eligible, and he was named as Prabowo's running mate within a few weeks, and as we know, of course, he went on to win. Now, it seems clear enough why the court changed its mind so dramatically between the morning and the afternoon. It was the presence of Anwar Usman. The judicial meeting to decide the 3 cases read out on Monday morning that upheld the age limit took place on Monday, 19th September, and Usman did not attend these cases, claiming to be ill. When Saldi Isra, one of the judges, asked the Deputy Chief Justice where Anwar Usman was, he was told that he couldn't attend because he was sick. But the meeting for the final case, which introduced the exception that assisted Gibran, took place on Wednesday, the 21st of September, 2 days later, and then apparently now healthy Usman did attend. And when Justice Saldi Isra asked why he was now attending, he said he was told that Usman had recovered. In fact, that's not quite what happened, because on Monday the 19th, the reason for Usman's non-attendance was actually that he had a conflict of interest. The explanation that he'd been sick and was now recovered was only explained to Saldi Isra on Wednesday the 21st of September. In other words, Usman seemed to have acknowledged that he had a conflict of interest on the first 3 cases, but ignored it for the last case. In any case, Anwar Usman managed to get 3 judges to change their minds, which meant that the court was locked 4 to 4. And using his casting vote, he reversed the court's position. The 4 judges who dissented in the final case complained about Usman's intervention. And 2 of those judges, Saldi Isra and Hidayat, even directly raised questions about Usman's behaviour and his obvious conflict of interest in their judgments. The result, which was unprecedented in the Constitutional Court, the result was an uproar across Indonesian civil society, epitomised by the viral documentary, which many of you will have seen, Dirty Vote, which directly attacked Usman for his conflict of interest in Decision 90 and made other allegations of misconduct relating to the case, including, for example, the fact that Saki Biru withdrew his petition at one point and resubmitted it, which is not permitted under the rules. In any case, Usman was accused of nepotism, and memes renaming his court the family court went viral. Someone even got onto the Google Maps and changed the court's name on Google Maps from Mahkamah Konstitusi to Mahkamah Keluarga. Members of civil society soon reported Usman to the MK Ethics Council. After extensive hearings, the Ethics Council decided in November 2023 to remove Usman as Chief Justice, but allow him to remain as a Justice of the MK. Decision 90 itself remained unchanged because the Ethics Council has no power to alter a decision of the MK. The Ethics Council decision was extremely controversial. One member, Bintan Saragi, a legal scholar, issued a dissenting decision. He pointed out that the MCA's own rules on the Ethics Council only allowed 3 kinds of punishment for justices who commit ethical violations: a verbal warning, a written warning, or dishonourable dismissal from the court. For Saragi, because Usman had committed a serious violation, the only possible sanction was dishonourable dismissal. The other 2 members of the Ethics Council were Jimli Ashadiki, the founding Chief Justice of the Court, and Wahiduddin Adams, then the most senior justice on the court. Jimli's involvement was controversial because he had publicly supported Prabowo's candidacy after making a public statement in support of him on the 1st of May. Questions were therefore raised about Jimli's conflict of interest, but he ignored them. In any case, Jimli and Wahiduddin agreed with Saragi that Usman had committed a serious ethical breach, but they decided to remove him as Chief Justice, not to dismiss him from the court. They did that even though in their decision they actually acknowledge that removal from Chief Justice while leaving him on the court was not actually a sanction that was by law available to the Ethics Council. The reasons they give for their decision were not convincing. They said that they were concerned that Usman would appeal to a new Ethics Council panel if he was dishonourably dismissed from the court. That, they said, would suspend the Ethics Council's decision, meaning Usman would remain as Chief Justice until the appeal was decided. And they said that this would disrupt the court at a busy time. But this is not a justification. If Usman could have appealed his removal as a judge, he could also have appealed his demotion from Chief Justice, especially because this is not actually a sanction the Ethics Council had power to impose. In the end, the MK accepted the Ethics Council's decision, and soon after, the judges, in accordance with the Ethics Council's orders, chose a new Chief Justice, Suhartoyo. Now, all the MK judges, including Anwar Usman, signed the legal instrument appointing Suhartoyo. While the legal basis for the Ethics Council's findings is unclear from its written decision, Jimli and Wahiduddin seem to have intended it as a compromise solution to settle tensions in the court and prevent legal action over Decision 90. But if that was their intention, they failed. As we know, Usman did appeal not to the Ethics Council, but to the Jakarta Administrative Court, or Petun. The Administrative Court's decision was handed down on 13 August, the same day the MK was celebrating its 21st anniversary. This was a coincidence, although many insiders in the court thought it was quite deliberate. The decision is a difficult and confusing one. On the one hand, the Administrative Court ordered the MK to cancel its order appointing Suhartoyo as Chief Justice. But on the other hand, it did not order Usman's reinstatement. The Administrative Court decided that the Ethics Council process was flawed, but it did not actually invalidate the Ethics Council's decision. Instead, it just focused on whether Suhartoyo's appointment was valid, and the court decided it wasn't. The Administrative Court decided that before appointing Suhartoyo, the MK should first have invalidated the original decision to appoint Usman Chief Justice made back in 2018. Now, of course, Suhartoyo argued that the Ethics Council decision had done just that, but the court said no. It said that the Ethics Council decision had a different legal form to a decision appointing a Chief Justice. In the end, the Administrative Court cancelled the Suhartoyo appointment decision and ordered the MK to rescind it. Usman, frustrated that the Administrative Court did not expressly order his reinstatement immediately, then appealed to the Jakarta High Administrative Court, and the MK has also appealed. This is, in fact, a court now at war with itself. There is an internal civil war within the Constitutional Court. The appeal to the High Administrative Court has the effect of suspending the Administrative Court until the High Administrative Court hands down a decision. Until that happens, Suhartoyo continues as Chief Justice. And as yet, we still don't have a decision from the High Administrative Court. Now, I think there are legal reasons to support an appeal decision to reinstate Usman as Chief Justice. I'm not saying that he didn't commit an ethical offence. I think he did. But the High Administrative Court may well decide to uphold the lower administrative court's decision to invalidate Suhartoyo's appointment, but it could also invalidate the Ethics Council decision to remove Usman because it imposed a penalty that it did not have power to impose under law, namely demoting him. All that would then remain in place is the 2018 MCA regulation appointing Usman Chief Justice, meaning he would automatically resume the position. Now, I'm not saying this is a good outcome, and I'm not saying that it's what should happen, but I think it is quite likely that it may. I want to now turn to the election cases, decisions 60 and 70. The nomination of Gibran as Prabowo's running mate, which led to decision 90 and its aftermath, is widely seen as part of President Jokowi's manoeuvring to maintain influence after his term ends. The same is true of efforts he has made to install allies in key governor positions in the local government Pilkada elections scheduled for 27 November. One of these political allies was Ridwan Kamil, the former governor of West Java, who Jokowi wanted to be Jakarta's next governor, anticipating this would prevent the re-election of his political enemy, Anies Baswedan. Another political ally, of course, was Jokowi's younger son, Kaesang, who Jokowi wanted to be the next governor of Central Java. But like his brother Gibran, the 29-year-old Kaesang was too young. He faced an age-based roadblock. Kaesang was barred from running due to an election law that requires governor candidates to be at least 30. And once again, a favourable and very questionable judicial decision seemed to clear the path for him. On 29 May, the Supreme Court decided that candidates must be 30 at the time they are inaugurated as governor. This enabled Kaesang to run, given that if elected, his inauguration would occur after his 30th birthday. This matter then went to the MCA, and despite the rolling crisis in the MCA created by Decision 90, or perhaps in response to it, the MCA made two decisions on 21 August that showed it was still capable of independent decision-making. In Decision 70, made unanimously by all the judges except for Usman, who didn't take part, he finally saw the wisdom of recusing himself when his nephews were involved. In a decision made unanimously by all the other judges, the court emphasised that the minimum age for a governor candidate applied at the time of nomination as a candidate, not at the time of inauguration. And the court even suggested that it might invalidate an election where an underage candidate had been elected. The result was Decision 70 meant Kaesang could not run, and he withdrew his candidacy. Then, in another decision on the same day, known as Decision 60, the court reduced the nomination threshold that political parties require to put forward candidates for the Pilkada elections. Under the regional election law, a political party or coalition needed either 20% of seats or 25% of total votes in the relevant provincial legislature, or DPRD. The court reduced this to the threshold that applied to independent candidates, and that varied according to the population of the province. And in the case of Jakarta, it was just 7.5% of the total vote that was needed to nominate, a very big reduction. This change was politically very important because it allowed Megawati's PDIP party to nominate a candidate for governor of Jakarta to run against Jokowi's pick, Ridwan. She was expected at the time to back Jokowi's enemy, Anies. These two decisions, Decision 60 and Decision 70, led to a very quick response. The DPR, dominated by President Jokowi's Kim coalition, defiantly announced that it would revise the regional election law. It would amend it, replace it, to reset the nomination threshold and create a new age limit of just 25 for governor candidates. Now, Although MK decisions are binding under Article 24C of the Constitution, the DPR probably could have got away with this. And this is because if the MK struck down the amendments, the new changes that the DPR planned to introduce, it probably could not have been able to do so before registration of candidates for the regional elections, which was just days away. Once made, those registrations could not be reversed. This is because the MK's decisions apply only forward in time and it cannot undo actions taken before an MK decision is made. In effect, there was a race between the MK and the DPR, and it looked like the DPR would win. The DPR's cynical, contemptuous and hostile treatment of the Constitutional Court and the blatant political ambitions behind the proposals, particularly Jokowi's dynastic plans, triggered a fast response from civil society, which, like the court, had seemed weak in recent years. Beginning in Jakarta, where crowds surrounded the DPR, eventually tearing off gates to the complex, demonstrations under the banners of emergency warning and democratic emergency soon erupted in other cities. There have certainly been much bigger demonstrations against the Jokowi government, but the crowds were enough to stop lawmakers from entering the DPR and forming a quorum. This meant without a quorum they couldn't proceed, and the Speaker eventually announced that the new electoral law had been abandoned for now, and Kaesang announced he would not run for governor. As expected, PDIP then announced it would nominate Anies for governor of Jakarta, only to reverse itself a few hours later and then a few days later pick an entirely different candidate to run against Ridwan. So, to finish, one result of the scandals surrounding Decision 90, probably the most controversial decision the MK has made in its entire history. The scandals surrounding this decision, which allowed Gibran to run, is that the MK is now weaker and more vulnerable to attack from its institutional archenemy, the DPR, than at any time before. Decisions 60 and 70, which blocked Kaesang and enabled a more competitive governor race in Jakarta, led to humiliation for the DPR, for Jokowi and for his political allies, who are deeply angry at the court's obstruction of their plans. They have a very strong motivation now to rein in the court and control it. This motivation will likely survive the swearing in of a new president and a new DPR in a month's time. They will also not want a non-compliant, independent and obstructive MK any more than the outgoing president and his government, particularly because the vice president will be Jokowi's son. The DPR now has before it a bill to once again amend the MK law, which is already one of the most amended statutes in recent years. The amendments that they are proposing could enable the removal of some current judges. For example, one proposal is to reintroduce 5-year terms for judges and allow the institutions that nominated the judge to decide whether a justice who has reached the 5-year limit should simply be removed. If that happened, it would of course mean that justices have a strong incentive just to wave legislation through, to become a rubber stamp institution, given that the institutions that nominated them can remove them with just a stroke of the pen. It would effectively end the independence of the MK. Another proposal is to impose a high age minimum requirement on MK judges. One of the court's best judges, Saldi Isra, was a dissenter in Decision 90 and in the majority in Decision 60 and 70. He's under the proposed age, and it seems pretty clear that he is being targeted for removal. However, the DPR may go further still, with politicians openly discussing the need to assess the MK's performance. There must be a real possibility that the DPR will pass laws to try and constrain the MK's power to review legislation further. The problem they have, however, is that the court's role is to strike out laws, and it could easily strike out legislation restricting its power. It's done that in the past. This means that the new government might need to amend the constitution to really crush the MK. Unfortunately, this is a real prospect. Prabowo's political party, Gerindra, has as its number one mission statement, you can see it on the PowerPoint, a return to the Constitution as stipulated on 18 August 1945. This is the original version of the Constitution before it was amended in the post-Suharto Reformasi period to create the Constitutional Court. In other words, if Gerindra's number one mission statement was achieved, a return to the 1945 Constitution would cause the court to simply cease to exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Tim Lindsey. Now, due to the time differences, we will first open the question and answer session, but particularly only for Professor Tim Lindsey's presentation. We will return to the presentation of our last but not least speaker after this, and then we will return to the major Q&A session afterwards. But first of all, we will accommodate questions if there is any, specifically for Professor Tim Lindsey's session. I see 1, 2. Maybe we will limit into 3 first questions. Anyone else? Okay, we will begin with Mas Anugrah Perdana.
Good afternoon. Still morning. Okay, good morning, Mr. Tim Lindsey. My name is Muhammad Anugrah Perdana. You can call me Dana. It is quite literally interesting when you said about the Constitutional Court, because I was writing about the Constitutional Court, especially in ethic codes. I actually found that the Constitutional Court ethic code itself, it is quite more really wide interpretation, and people can be decide spreadly, especially on the Anwar Usman case. That people always say that the Constitutional Court should fire the Anwar Usman, but on the Sabta Karsa Utama, on the enforcement of Sabta Karsa Utama itself, it is not mentioned that the heavy violation of the ethic codes should be punished by the fire, or we call it pemberhentian secara tidak hormat to Anwar Usman. And actually, it is because it made solved by the Constitutional Court, and the other statement says by the Zainal Arifin Mukhtar that the ethic codes should be regulated on law, not only by the institutional regulation. And I would like to ask you about what kind of the substance that should regulate on the ethic codes, the ethic codes bill, and also what kind of enforcement that should be regulated on the bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mas Anugrah Perdana. Pak Tim, did you get the question?
I did, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
Yes.
You can go to answer directly.
Yeah, the point about the MK ethics code, the MK ethics code, is that it only has 3 sanctions: a verbal warning, a written reprimand, or dishonorable dismissal. And as Saragi pointed out in his decision in the MK case, there is no sanction allowing for demotion available to the MK. They can either give the warning, verbally, written reprimand, or they can remove the judge completely. There is no option for them to leave the judge in the court and demote. So the problem is not that they are under an obligation to dishonourably dismiss. They have a choice of three. The problem is actually that the sanction they chose to impose, namely demotion, is not an option available to them. So the three members of the MK, Jimli, Wahiduddin, Barita Saragi, could only pick one of those three. And Saragi's argument was that the ethics breach was so severe that the only appropriate sanction was dishonourable dismissal. The problem is that the majority, Jimli and Wahiduddin, while they agreed that the breach was severe, and there's no question that it was clearly a breach of the ethics code, it's also a breach of Article 17 of the Judicial Powers Law. So while they agreed that the breach was a serious one, the penalty they imposed is not one available to them under the ethics code, namely just demotion. Sorry, my throat, I'm struggling with pilak. So that's the problem with the MK decision, and that's why the outcome is very uncertain in the Pengadilan Tinggi Petun, because I think that the Ethics Council did actually make a mistake by imposing sanctions not available to them. In terms of how the code might be reformed in the future and issues of enforcement, that's complex because to be independent, a court needs to establish its own ethical code and regulate its enforcement itself. If you grant authority for the operation of an ethics code and enforcement to an outside agency, there's a danger of compromising the independence of the institution. And that's particularly true for the judicial institution that has the authority to check the power of the most powerful political organ in the whole of Indonesia, which is the DPR. So I think there's a complex question about how you might go about changing or amending the ethics system. I think the ethics system is actually a reasonably good one. The code is a strong one. It's fairly clear on the procedures. The MK did in fact comply with the order of the MK. The problem is simply that the MK itself applied a sanction that wasn't in the ethics code.
Thank you, Pak Tim. We may proceed to the second question. Yes, please. Please mention your name and your institution.
Tes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, dear all. My name is Intan Nurhafilah. I'm one of doctoral program of law at Universitas Islam Indonesia, and I'm just a practitioner as a lawyer and the Commission of Consumer Protection Board in Indonesia. I only have one simple question to Mr. Lindsey, that have phenomena in Indonesia lately about the concept of open legal policy. Maybe the concept of open legal policy has been the primary phenomena at Constitution Court lately because it was become a barrier of the decision of the judge. Is there any comparison of the composition of the judge who will break the decision about the application of the court, Constitution Court? Is there any involvement of the composition of the amount of the judge? How about your opinion about that open legal policy concept in Indonesia? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that interesting question, Ibu Intan. Open legal policy is a very important principle because basically it says that if a principle is not enunciated in the Constitution, then any issue that arises outside what's in the Constitution is a matter for the lawmakers, for the DPR. So the Constitutional Court, in principle, will not intervene in a matter that is not governed by the Constitution. It will then say this is open legal policy in the sense that it's free from regulation by the Constitution and will accept legislation on the grounds that it is a matter which the lawmakers have the right to determine. So that's the meaning of open legal policy. And that reflects the distinction between positive and negative lawmakers. The legislature creates the laws, and in theory, the Constitutional Court, and this is true for courts around the world, its role is not to produce legislation, but simply to check legislation. Now, in the course of checking legislation, it may have to reinterpret legislation, or sometimes it's called rewriting legislation. And in Indonesia, that takes the form of conditional or unconditional constitutionality, where the court determines that a particular phrase in legislation is only going to be valid if it's understood in line with the Constitution. So it's conditionally constitutional if interpreted in that fashion. But that's a matter of checking and realigning laws with the Constitution where there's a clear constitutional principle. It's not the role of the Constitutional Court or of any constitutional court to create law where there isn't a relevant constitutional principle. So for that reason, for a very long period of time in a whole range of different decisions, the MK would say that questions of age limit are a matter for legislators. And that was open legal policy, and it wouldn't intervene unless there was something extremely unjust or something that damaged legal certainty or created discrimination, in other words, which was in breach of those sorts of clear legal principles. The actual age limit itself was not constitutionally regulated, and therefore it was up to lawmakers. And that was what the court had consistently held in a whole series of age limit cases until it came to decision 90. And the fact that the decisions made 2 days earlier upheld the open legal policy principle, and that the court has since re-enunciated the open legal policy decision or principle in other cases, shows that the only reason why the court abandoned that position for decision 90 had to be because of the intervention of Chief Justice Anwar Usman in order to assist the interests of his family. There's no other viable explanation for a dramatic abandonment of a very clearly enunciated position of the court, the open legal policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Tim Lindsey. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, due to the interest of time, I think we will have to conclude the question and answer session for Professor Tim Lindsey's session. And once again, thank you very much, Professor Tim Lindsey. It's always refreshing. Please give a round of applause. It's always refreshing to hear about Indonesian legal system from the point of view of non-Indonesians. So at last, we wish you speedy recovery, and we will now return to our primary session with our last but not least panelist. It's our beloved Ayahanda, Dr. Agus Triyanta.
Can I just say thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this conference, and I also just want to recognise another Melbourne University alumni,
yes.
Nandang Krishno. So thank you very much, and salam buat Pak Nandang.
Thank you very much, Prof. Tim Lindsey. Thank you. Okay, salam balik dari Pak Nandang. Our last panelist for the day, our Ayahanda, Dr. Agus Triyanta. You all know him. He is the Vice Dean on Religious, Student and Alumni Affairs at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. He is also graduating. He obtained his master's degree from the University of Manchester, United Kingdom, and his PhD from the International Islamic University of Malaysia. So, Pak Agus Triyanta, the floor is yours.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa syukurillah, assalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Our distinguished Dean, Professor Budi Agus Rismandi, thank you for still being here. It is too hard to sit on this room, I think, yeah. And also our distinguished speakers here, Dr. Nurhafilah binti Musa, and also we have Professor Tim Lindsey away from here, and also Professor Farhat Ullah from Warwick University also away from here. And we have our guest, our co-host institution from Magister of Economic Law, yeah, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Dr. Nurhafilah. Thank you for co-hosting the seminar, and also all the participants. It is our turn here for the last speaker, but hopefully we can manage the presentation within very limited time, yeah. So we have been listening many topics, starting from the information technology ethics and also from the society and democracy in Malaysia, and also technology and government from Warwick University, and also just recently about constitutional law from Professor Tim Lindsey. Now we are going to have another topic. It is about morality and modern law. The encounter between moral and modern law, the rise of the global halal industry. So we just know discussing about ethics, which in the very early, our rector saying that though this is not law, but we must adopt certain ethics in dealing with technology, with information, etc. But now we are going to have some discussion on the encounter between moral and modern law. Sometimes people thinking that morality is separated from law, or law and moral is different thing. But we're going to understand recently, later on, yeah, that actually in the area of halal industry, we see that moral is actually integrated into law. How moral law can be integrated to what we call by state law? We see here that religion will produce what we call by moral values, and then it becoming religious law, just like Islamic law is actually aspect of law which is integrated with values of Islam. And then this religious law then adopted becoming state regulations. It doesn't need that the state must be Islamic or not. Later on we're going to prove that actually the countries like the state like United States or maybe England, yeah, the UK also adopting what we call by certain aspect of religious law into state regulation. And then finally we can see in the regulatory framework made or established by the government, we can see that some aspect of Islamic law also there. So as a living law, religious law can be nationally accommodated. How it will happen, we can see here. Moral, as we know from literature, that it is talking about good and bad, but in more personal sense. So someone saying that maybe pornography is bad, but another one saying pornography is good. So this is about moral and personal opinion. Similarly, about certain aspect, yeah, same-sexual marriages, for example, drinking alcoholic drink, for example. Someone saying bad, another saying good. But we have also the sense of ethics, which is actually very close to moral, but ethics belong to certain community. For example, ethics of conduct among the lawyers, among the advocates, for example, yeah, among the lecturers, among the students. But still, if we can see the substance still similar between moral and ethic. However, they are oftenly used interchangeably. Yeah? Law, but it is different with law because law affects state governmental sanction, whereas moral actually more psychological and social attributes. But law, the sanctions can be just like penalty or punishment from the government. So this is the difference between moral and law. But now we are going to talk that moral actually can be integrated to law in this, I mean, what we call disruptive and modern era. Yeah, we can see here. Religion and state in the United States. So, to understand about the encounter between moral and law, we're going to see what happened in America. Yeah, religion and state in the USA. In New York Times magazine in 2008, this magazine put the headline title, "Why Sharia?" So it was becoming hot issue in America, why Sharia must be adopted in America. Why Sharia can be permitted in America. This headline coincidence with the case when Barack Obama bailing out many financial industry in America. One of the industry is actually providing Islamic finance services. And therefore, it is relating with Sharia. And therefore, this is becoming big question in America. In July 2016, Times Magazine, we lose letter S here, yeah, Times Magazine, also put the very hot news, Sharia is nothing to fear. That Sharia sometimes relating to business, no matter, I mean, it doesn't necessarily that the person is Muslim or non-Muslim, but they're dealing with certain Sharia businesses, and therefore they put Sharia as nothing to fear. Okay, we go. And what is the trend happening in America? That 11 states already happen in America, where courts have used Islamic law to resolve the dispute cases. These states are Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Tennessee, and Texas. In these 11 states, the court already adopting Islamic law to settle the dispute. It was unimaginable maybe 50 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, that America will adopt Islamic law in their court, because the constitution in America still put religion as out of the state authority. America, one of the secular state with spirit between religion and state, because in the Declaration of Establishment in America was stated that America was, as the United States of America was established regardless of religion, race, skin colors, etc. So America doesn't, I mean, have certain connection with religion, but then later on today they adopting Islamic law to settle the dispute. Cases handled range from family law to financial dispute. Okay, the National Bank Act of 1864 in America also newly interpreted because in the act is stated in the United States prohibited the banking industry from carrying out buying and selling transaction. So bank is intermediary financial institution and nothing to do with selling or buying, ya, menjual dan membeli nggak boleh. Bank itu nggak boleh menjual dan membeli. But because the rising of Islamic bank in America, which prioritize the product we call by murabahah in ijarah, which is it is about selling and hiring or leasing, then the OCC or the OJK of America, OCC, yeah, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, this OCC belong to OJK, issued interpretative letters which says that murabahah and ijarah then is permitted. Okay. But it doesn't mean that all people there agree with this, because there is anti-Sharia response in the US also. In 2008, the American government itself was sued in the court by its own citizen, namely Kevin G. Murray, as the taxpayers. The lawsuit is addressed to American government, CQ Department of Treasury. Why? Because Obama adopted the policy to bail out EIG, American International Group. It is a big, very big company of insurance, which in some countries opening Sharia insurance, including in Malaysia, I think. Because of this, then, Kevin G. Murray, one of the citizens in America, doesn't agree that the government support EIG, which is actually relating to Islamic financial business. So it means that Obama government, Obama administration has violated the constitution to support certain religion. In this context, to support Islam. But this case already been settled, and the winner was the government. So it means that it doesn't really mistake when Obama bailing out EIG, which in its subsidiary business opening Syariah insurance business. Jadi warga negara ini kalah dalam menggugat pemerintah Amerika ketika menuduh bahwa Amerika telah membantu salah satu agama. Kenapa? Karena EIG memiliki anak perusahaan di bidang asuransi syariah yang sangat besar di berbagai negara. Obama dituduh melanggar konstitusi karena mensupport salah satu negara, namely Islam, ya. But then the suit was dismissed. The suit was, lost in the court. Okay, so we see in the UK, Rowan Williams, sorry, this is not Rowan Atkinson, ya. Pemain Master Bean, Rowan Atkinson. This is Rowan Williams, Archbishop of Canterbury, stated that the future implementation of Islamic law in England seems unavoidable. It was written in Sunday Times in 2008. Jadi nampaknya pemberlakuan hukum Islam di Inggris nggak bisa dihindari lagi. Yang bilang ini penasehat agama Katolik, ya, Archbishop of Canterbury. And then what happened the next? In England, Sharia court have been established in 4 cities: London, Birmingham, Manchester, and Bradford. The establishment of Sharia court based on Sharia arbitration, which will then be determined by the British court. This is Islamic arbitration panel, which is permitted by the government. So it was also unimaginable, maybe 30 years ago, that in England, certain kind of Islamic dispute center will be established. But this has happened today. Vatican's response to what Islamic finance. Official statement from the Catholic authorities in the Vatican, in its official publication Osservatore Romano, dated 3 of March 2009, the Vatican stated that the ethical principle on which Islamic finance is based may bring banks closer to their client and to the true spirit which should mark every financial service. Jadi Vatikan mengatakan etika bisnis Islam itu boleh jadi akan membawa bank lebih dekat kepada kliennya, and the true spirit, dan itu spirit yang benar yang mestinya lembaga keuangan harus begitu. So it means that there is what we call the globalization of what we call by Islamic finance or Sharia finance. Okay. So before this, what we understood about law and religion is actually based on the theory of secularization, in which that all the things, including religion, must be set away from the government, must be spirited, must be excluded from the state because of the process of what we call by secularization, which is advocated by many experts. One of them is Brian Turner, that 4 areas religion's role taken over by secular authorities, including what I put in the red color registration is actually political and legal system, are excluded from religion. This is based on the theory of secularization. And this is the step of the secularization that in many countries, Islamic law then put away from the government. Separation, religion and state, industrialization and liberalization or democratization. But the fact today, we can see that this old way of adopting law is actually already changed. It doesn't necessarily the constitution saying that have certain position on certain religion or Islam to adopt certain aspect of Islamic law. Tidak mesti negara harus punya perubahan konstitusi untuk mengadopsi aturan terkait dengan bisnis syariah. Ternyata tanpa merubah konstitusi, Amerika bisa memberlakukan itu. Padahal dalam classical constitutional law, we always saying if there is no attribute in constitution, so certain kind of law cannot be enforced. But this is the old model, I think. No, we come to the secularization rebound, pantulan balik dari proses sekularisasi. That because of the human rights demand, democratization, and economic challenges, then many secular countries adopting Islamic law. And coming to the global halal industry, and right now, more than 70 countries across the globe has involving in this kind of business, yeah. In cosmetic, in food beverages, in Islamic financing, lifestyle, ingredient, logistic, etc. This is the scope. Okay, we can jump. This is some examples. Yeah, in South Africa, partnering with Malaysia as the Western Cape Fine Food Initiative Cooperation Agreement to foster partnership between halal industry of the two countries. South Africa also a secular country, yeah, a secular state. And second, cooperation occurred between South Korea and Abu Dhabi, with South Korea gaining additional access to the global halal market. Again, South Korea also, secular country. Unilever invested 1.7 billion in manufacturing plant in Cavite, Philippines, support halal operation in Southeast Asia, not in Indonesia or Malaysia or Brunei, but rather in Philippines. Halal e-commerce firm Aladdin Street has announced a 5-year sponsorship agreement with the UK's Manchester United. So this is halal industry also support Manchester United for 5-year agreement. Leading New York-based halal guys have expanded across the US and seeking to develop more than 400 franchise restaurants globally. So those are the examples that actually the introduction of Islamic or halal business in certain countries will also bring about the change in legal system, that they must adopt certain aspect of Islamic law, which maybe again 20 or 30 years ago it was impossible. And many people always suspicious about Sharia and Islam, but today they must adopt this. So conclusion, in some regulatory framework relating to halal industry, Islamic law values are possible to be integrated to state or governmental regulation. It means moral values, including Islamic values, can then be aggregated to the formal law. Today, it seems that to adopt religious law doesn't necessarily require formal provision in the constitution that certain religion is granted certain privilege, but under the principle of human rights, economic motives, and new way of legislation, a new way of legislation is then acceptable. I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Bapak Agus Triyanta, PhD. Our beloved guests, I open this presentation session by questioning whether the law truly is always a latecomer when it comes to the society and the technological development. And in the last presentation, Pak Agus Triyanta has proven that one of the legal system established in the world, the Islamic law, with with its timeless and universal nature, is actually not the latecomer, ya Pak Agus. In fact, it has been around for the longest time, and the fact that it is the society which in returns developed to adjust its development with the Islamic law, proven by the commencement of Islamic courts in secular countries, the usage of Islamic law in those secular countries as well. Now, we will resume to our question and answer session, but for technicality issues, I will have to prioritize the question for Ibu Dr. Nurhafilah Musa first. Is there any question? I will open. Please be mindful, it is prioritizingly for Dr. Nurhafilah Musa. I see 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dr. Nurhafilah Musa. My name is Muhammad Anugrah Perdana. I would like to ask about the legislation. You mentioned it before on your presentation that you mentioned Dewan Perundang-undangan always have a conflict, and also it is also happening in Malaysia, and Indonesia always have a political drama in the legislation. Actually, after the implementation of the fast-track legislation, actually Indonesia doesn't renounce about the fast-track legislation in the law of number 12 of 2011, but they implement the fast-track legislation by utilize the legal loophole on the law. I would like to ask about the same case on Indonesia. On Malaysia legislation, is there any case that Malaysia used the fast-track legislation to accelerate the legislation? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the question. Sorry, I need to have some clarification. As far as I know, there is no such thing as fast-track regulation, but if the government wants a piece of legislation quickly, they will do all the due process. It's just that the tabling of the legislation will be done. For example, we are going to have our parliamentary session in October. Okay, it might be done in just one go in one session, meaning to say, let's say after because October is usually the tabling of the budget, so we might have some legislations that we want to pass at the parliament, okay? So what I mean by being fast is that because we usually have 3 readings, the first reading, the second reading, and the third reading. So all the 3 readings, if the government wants the law to be fast track, it can be done in 1 week, okay? And it will go through the Dewan Negara, the Senate, okay, in the same period of session, all right, and then done, and then wait for assent from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, okay, but still they have to go through all the process. It cannot be like the Prime Minister wants the law today and tomorrow it can be passed. No, there's no such thing in Malaysia. Because our system is the Agong is the head of the parliament. So all laws must obtain assent from Agong. So the due process, they still have to table it and debate it and pass it in the Dewan Rakyat, the lower house, and then they have to go through the upper house. If both house pass and you still need to wait for Agong to assent to the law, then it only become law. So I don't think it can be less than 1 month. I don't think it's possible in Malaysia. Okay.
Thank you. We'll move forward to the second questioner.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ai Rahmawati. I'm a master's student in Sharia Economic Law at Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University, Jakarta. In Malaysia, is advanced from aspect of its Islamic economy, such as Islamic banks and other financial institutions. However, what about the aspect of Islamic economic law? Has business law been integrated with Islamic law, or how? Thank you.
Okay, how do I say this? Basically, in Malaysia, there is some movement to harmonize between the common law and Islamic law. Okay, but it depends on the minister and who draft the law. Okay. So, for example, when you talk about Islamic banking, finance, takaful, because at that particular time we have those in power who really wants to imbue Islamic principles in banking and finance. Okay, so because at that time in the 1980s, nobody talk about Islamic banking and finance. Okay, and Malaysia passed a legislation regarding Islamic banking finance, and the latest legislation is 2013. So the financial aspect of banking and finance, there are two ways on how you can look at it. We have a fully Islamic bank, like Bank Islam, Bank Muamalat, that is totally Islamic transaction business, but we also have the bank with Syariah counters. They have the non-Islamic, ada yang boleh pilih masuk syurga, boleh pilih masuk neraka. Gitulah, mana faham gitu kan? So the customer is at their liberty to choose whether they want to do the, we call it conventional banking, the one with interest and everything, and also the Islamic counter. And I think there's a research, I can't remember who did the research, the data provided, it was presented, I can't remember what year, but they found out that many of the Islamic banking users are actually non-Muslim in Malaysia, because they understand the benefits that they get when they do contract, when they do hire purchase or whatever loan, car loan or house loan, using Islamic instruments. Okay. Then we venture into Islamic finance. We have suku and whatnot, and including our KL Bursa Saham, what do you call it? Stock market exchange. Okay, we also have the halal and haram counter. So for Muslims, before this, who are not very particular about which stock exchange that they want to invest, they can basically go to any. But now the Bursa, our stock exchange, they have the halal counter. So you can choose all those companies, whether it's a Muslim or non-Muslim company, to purchase the stock exchange there. So basically in Malaysia, we provide options rather than imposing on people, you must do your business this way and this way. And we educate the people why entering into a transaction using based on Islamic principle is better rather than doing the conventional way. So the development has been more organic rather than forcing people to choose it. So that's why we end up being, most conventional bank in Malaysia will have a Syariah window or Syariah counter. You can go to any bank in Malaysia, they will have. Even when you open an account, you can open, even if you're non-Muslim, you can open an Islamic account. It's not a problem in Malaysia. You don't have to be a Muslim to open an Islamic account or to enter into a higher purchase based on Islamic principle, mudarabah, musyarakah, whatever. So that's how we develop our Islamic banking finance, and now we even have pawn shop. Ar-Rahnu, apa itu di sini? Pajak gadai. Kalau pergi di Malaysia gitu, seluruh Malaysia ada pajak gadai Islam. Walaupun sebenarnya pajak gadai itu kalau dari segi undang-undangnya masih undang-undang sekular, orang civil law, bukan civil law, common law legislation, or sorry, not it's not common law legislation. It's just civil law legislation. It's not. There is no law based. There's no law regarding pawn shop on Islamic principles. But because the government and the people find that Islamic pawn shops are more fair and equitable to the people, all right. So there are a lot of Islamic pawn shops all over Malaysia actually. Okay.
Thank you. Maybe the last question for.
First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Farhat. I'm from Diponegoro University. I want to say Indonesia now will have a new president, Mr. Prabowo, and he want to make some cabinet. And then I have a question. That there is some phenomena in Indonesia. There is maybe no opposition in parliamentary in our DPR. What do you think about this phenomena in Indonesia? And then furthermore, I want to ask about the democracy. What do you think democracy is a final output, or democracy is only a tool of building a nation? What is the best of this opinion? Democracy as a final output, or democracy as a tool, just a tool for building a nation? Maybe this for me.
Okay, a legislature without opposition, is that the question? Yes. Okay, we have a state in Malaysia that has no opposition right now. After, what was it, 2023, right? Because we had 2 elections. Usually we have the state and federal elections at the same time, but for the last 2 years we had the parliament election in 2022 and we had the state election in 2023. So happen to be we have one state in Malaysia, the state of Terengganu. You can Google it, Terengganu. Okay, that state of Terengganu has no opposition at all. Okay, no opposition at all. Yes, the same question arises. How do you govern without opposition? How do you have that check and balance into opposition? Okay, my answer to it is like this. First of all, not everybody will like what you want to do, right? Even in the family, for father and mother, not all the kids will like what you want to do, right? So there will be always someone who dislike what the government decide. Okay, so naturally, there will always be an opposition outside of the legislature. And with this current social media, you don't need an opposition in the legislature. Because you basically would know in your social media account, for example, the Chief Minister of Terengganu is Dr. Ahmad Samsuri Mukhtar, or he is fondly known as Dr. Sam. You can check his Facebook or his Instagram. So people will just can post a comment. Datuk Seri, saya tak suka dia ni. Datuk Seri, apa ni buat macam ni? They can just comment in the social media postings, okay, expressing their dislike or disagreement on whatever the government policy is, okay, and that's one thing. So how the mechanism in the legislature itself is they have backbenchers, right? So the backbenchers can be sort of the bad boy in the legislature, but I think they to have some sort of check and balance. You can't have a very boring legislature with everybody agreeing, right? So there must be some, differences of opinion respectfully done in the legislature. The second question regarding democracy, I see democracy as a tool, and currently we don't have any option. Do we have any other option? We don't want to be communism, right? We don't want to be a fully theocratic country. We also don't want that. So apa option yang ada, apa pilihan yang ada? Demokrasi lah. Cuma demokrasi yang bagaimana? Itu soalan dia. Demokrasi yang bagaimana? Indonesia dengan gaya demokrasi di Indonesia, Malaysian way of doing things. But I think it's also important to learn from other advanced democracy, how do they do it better. So that never-ending process is where the scholars come in and advise the government. We don't think this is the right way because we are going backwards, this is how we move forward. So sebab itu perlu ada sarjana, sebab itu perlu ada orang-orang yang bijak pandai memberi nasihat pada kerajaan. Sebab kalau orang politik, dia tidak mahu orang pandai gitu, kan? Lebih mudah kalau orang itu tidak pandai, sebab bila orang pandai dia tahu hak dia. Dia akan minta, hak kami begini, tak boleh buat begini, kan? Jadi bukanlah saya nak generalize apa, bukan, sebab macam ni saya nak cakap. It's not easy to deal with disagreement, am I right? It's easier as a bapak dekan, macam saya timbalan dekan. It's easier if there is no disagreement. When there's a disagreement, then you have to deal with it, right? So when you have to deal with it, if you are a very, how do you say, a brave leader, a very futuristic leader, so you are, how do you say, you can deal with it and you will head on deal with the issue. But not everybody is like that. Because some people would think that, especially we have this notion in Malaysia, kalau orang itu law student, orang itu mesti banyak cakap. Orang itu mesti banyak mau tegur. Orang itu mesti baru banyak komen. Sebab orang undang-undang yang belajar hukum itu mesti dia tahu hak dia. Yang orang lain tak tahu. Jadi sebab tu saya kata, bila orang ada ilmu undang-undang, ilmu hukum, dia akan lebih bijak daripada orang lain sebab dia tahu hak dia bagaimana dan hak, macam mana nak dapatkan hak tu. Orang lain mungkin tahu haknya bagaimana tapi dia tak tahu macam mana nak dapatkan hak itu. Okay, so democracy is a tool only if the field is a level playing field for everybody. Once it's not level anymore, then there's going to be a lot of issues that we need to deal with. Itu sahajalah. Sebabnya padang itu bergantung kepada pemainnya. Kan, main bola kan, yang Manchester United lah apa semua kan. Jadi kalau pemainnya sama-sama faham, sama-sama bagus, sama-sama baik, insya-Allah okey. Tapi kalau pemainnya ada yang suka apa? Suka cheating gitu kan. Dan ada masalah lah. Begitulah ibaratnya lah. Boleh faham ya? Okey, wallahu a'lam. Okay, because I think I need to leave the room. My flight is at apa? Saya sukar mau faham. We say 5:30, tapi orang sini sebut 5:30 ya. Kalau di Malaysia kita sebut 5:30, tapi di sini sebut 5:30. Half past 5. Okay. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me. I find it very interesting, a different perspective, and I hope I welcome all of you to come to UKM, to come to Malaysia, and have a more vibrant academic discussion so that we can develop more knowledge, insyaAllah. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Ibu Nurhafilah Musa, thank you. Have a safe flight, Ibu. Okay, now. Oh, I see. We have the handing over session of the Cindramata, Ibu, from the committee.
So this is the session of giving token of appreciation by the Dean of Faculty of Law Universitas Islam Indonesia. Once again, give round of applause to Dr. Nurhafilah Musa from UKM, Malaysia. Thank you so much for the presentation and for the knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Now we can proceed to the final question and answer session. And is there any question directed for Bapak Agus Triyanta or our other speaker, Dr. Farhat Ullah? Is there any? Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much for the chance. And I have question for Mr. Farhat Ullah regarding the artificial intelligence. And by the way, my name is Aditya Dwi Rahman. I'm from Hasanuddin University. And directly, my question is, as per what I have understand from the material that Mr. Farhat Ullah have given, is artificial intelligence is one of the digital disruption, and of course it will affect the dynamics of law. One of the interesting things is decision making using artificial intelligence. Furthermore, there is also a discussion about implementing the artificial intelligence in the legislation system. And from this issue, what is the view on this, considering that the decision made with the intervention or assistance of artificial intelligence may eliminate the element of humanity in decision making? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Dr. Farhat Ullah still with us on the Zoom meeting? Oh, I think we lost him, but we'll just skip the question, Mas, and then we can ask once again after Dr. Farhat Ullah rejoin the Zoom meeting. Okay, any question for the presentation of Bapak Agus Triyanta, PhD? Sudah paham? Any question? Okay, so if there is no question, then I will allocate some time for Bapak Agus Triyanta to give a closing remark and to officially end our presentation session this morning. Please.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Gemilang, for this final opportunity. So to sum up my ideas or my presentation is that actually Islamic economy or halal industry is becoming tool to penetrate Islamic law into any areas of law in the world or any countries. Regardless the country Islamic or maybe secular states, but in the area of Islamic economic or halal industry, then they treat this as something which is actually demanded, and therefore by promoting Islamic or halal industry, the penetration of Islamic law into any legal system across the world is actually becoming possible. The suspicions before with saying that Sharia is dangerous, Islamic law is dangerous, no, is I think less popular than before, because as the proof that I gave, that it is becoming arrow or becoming tool to penetrate to any legal regimes across the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Agus Triyanta. Thank you. With the end of closing remarks from Bapak Agus Triyanta marks the end of our international seminar presentation session this morning. And akhirul kalam, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, for students, please don't move anywhere first, because we have important announcement from the chief of the team. He is Mr. Rahadian Difaul Barok Suartono, SHMH, who will give a brief explanation about the next session agenda. The time is yours.
Alright, thank you Mas Farhan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, Bapak Ibu sekalian, ladies and gentlemen, after this we will have presentation sessions for the call for paper. Sesi presentasi untuk call for paper karena kemarin kita juga membuka call for paper. Jadi untuk Bapak Ibu sekalian yang mengikuti sesi call for paper, presentation paper, nanti akan kami antarkan ke ruangan masing-masing. Dan kami sudah mengupdate pengumuman melalui website dan juga beberapa sudah kami emailkan untuk peserta-peserta yang mengikuti secara daring melalui Zoom. Link Zoom sudah kami kirimkan. Kita akan memiliki 4 sesi presentasi pada grup 1. For the group 1 is the group of Islamic Law, will be facilitated by Bapak Umar Haris Sanjaya. And in charge reviewer will be Pak Ahmad Saad Ahmad Al-Dafrawi. The venue will be on the stage room 3rd floor west side. Ada di ruangan stage room di lantai 3 sisi barat. Jadi dari sini melalui lift elevator ataupun melalui tangga yang di sebelah kiri, turun 1 lantai berada di sisi sebelah kiri. Kemudian untuk private and business law, the facilitator will be administered by Bapak Sahid Hadi, and in charge reviewer will be Ibu Francis and Mary Davi. The venue atau ruangannya will be in Erasmus Room 3rd floor. Jadi di lantai 3 sama dengan yang tadi stage room, nanti dari ketika ketemu stage room silahkan belok ke kiri. Nanti di sebelah kanan ada tulisan, di sana sudah kami siapkan papan petunjuk untuk nama ruangannya dan juga nama-nama bagi Bapak Ibu sekalian, dan juga judul presentasinya sudah kami siapkan, silahkan untuk masuk ke dalam ruangan. Dan untuk Criminal and Public International Law, the facilitator will be Bapak Christopher M. Kaysens, and in charge reviewer will be Bapak Mahrus Ali. The venue will be held virtually via Zoom, fully via Zoom. Link Zoom sudah kami kirimkan. The Zoom meeting is already sent via email. And for the participants who come to the campus today, we will please tell us, tolong konfirmasi ke kami, akan kami siapkan ruangan untuk presentasi. Karena khusus untuk yang Criminal and Public International Law, mostly all of the presentations will be delivered via virtual. And the last one will be the Constitutional and Administrative Law. The facilitator will be Pak Muhammad Adi Fauzani, and the in-charge reviewer will be Ibu Siti Rahma Novikasari. The venue is in mini auditorium 4th floor. Jadi di ruangan ini sebelah kiri, keluar dari ruangan ini lurus saja sebelah kiri sebelum ada tangga, di sebelah kanan di situ adalah ruang mini auditorium untuk Constitutional and Administrative Law. So ladies and gentlemen, that's all the announcements, and for the presenter, we already prepared the lunch and coffee break in each room. So please take all your bag and you may transit there. And then you may have a zuhur prayer before we will start at 13:00 pada pukul 1 siang. So thank you Bapak Ibu sekalian. Please don't hesitate to inform us if there is any further questions. Kami akan standby di meja depan untuk bagian presensi. Dan untuk Bapak Ibu sekalian yang bergabung dalam acara ini sebagai non-presenter, kami ucapkan terima kasih atas kehadirannya. Pada prinsipnya acara presentasi pada kedua ini terbuka untuk umum, tetapi karena terbatasnya ruangan, jadi mohon untuk dapat memaklumi apabila nanti tidak dapat memasuki ruangan sebagai non-presenter, karena kami mengutamakan untuk yang presenter, peserta presenter. So, thank you Mas Farhan. I will deliver the microphone to the Master of Ceremony.
Okay, thank you. We look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you for being essential part of the first Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology, and Society. Until next time, good day and goodbye. Walking at Yogyakarta. Terima kasih dan sampai jumpa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.